I'm Octale.
I am Gnomewise.
And you are listening to VTWProductions.com.
Versus the World Radio.
What is the matter with you? Hi, girls. This is no joke. Tough love, baby. Keep it together. Oh, no. This is bad. My whole life depends on it!
Calm down, princess. You're listening to...
No excuses.
Your video game news from around the world with Ari, Vol, and Fern.
It's the perfect plan. Huzzah!
How's it going, everyone? Welcome to an archived edition of No Excuses on VTWProductions.com with your favorite show hosts, Aristo,
Valerian,
and Volacel, and we're here to bring you the latest news and commentary on the video games industry after several false start attempts to get this show running. And it's been there's been technical issues for days today, basically. But if you like
slow, so yeah, sorry, Serathis. I know you were promised it would actually be live this week, but
stuff exploded 27 hours after I told you to wait 27 hours.
If you would like to get involved with the show, you can still do so after the fact by sending us an email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or by following us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or by joining us in our Discord chat channel by going to any recent show post that we've made on vtwproductions.com and finding the link there, which should take you to our Discord.
Yep, it's actually, I've tried something new for the latest couple, actually, before I went away. So if you click the No Excuses logo, it will connect you to the Discord.
I see.
This is very handy.
Indeed, I've even put a nice handy caption underneath it.
Oh, so it's not stealthed. It's not a secret.
It's not stealth. No, I could make it stealth. I could put a secret Discord in there somewhere. So, yeah, it's good to be back. That was an eventful trip away. It has proven though that you two are absolutely not to be trusted.
We held it together for one show. The first one was fine. The second one, not so much. We almost accidentally made the political show twice. But we caught each other. Each of us caught each other.
And then, we stopped the recording, and then we ranted for like 3 hours straight.
Yeah. We talked for so long, I was devolving into one-word sentences about the nature of politics. Yeah,
that word would be nope.
Yeah, no. We cut it off before it got too bad.
Yeah. So, yeah. That was... I'd rather have not done that trip away. Like, the event itself that I had to go down for was fine, mostly, but 18 hours of driving? No.
Well, that's what you need to do to get anywhere in Australia.
Tis true, unless you happen to live on the coast.
Just enormous tracts of absolutely nothing.
Yeah. It actually amuses me no end when I tell people I've got to drive 18 hours to get home now. When down on the coast, because they cannot believe that anyone actually needs to drive that far.
That anybody's mad enough to drive that far.
Also that. And more the point that I actually do it in one hit. I just want to get it over and done with as quick as possible, so I'm not going to plonk down in a hotel somewhere and waste a second day.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't think I've ever been on the road for that long at a stretch before. Like we used to do an all-day trip that took usually about something like 10 or 11 hours to do, but part of that time was spent sitting on the ferry. So, because you actually can't really drive for that long in any particular direction in New Zealand without getting on a boat.
Or falling in the ocean.
Well, yeah, there's that too.
Yeah, don't do that. But yeah, in Australia, generally, if you start out, say, here, where I am now, and you drive 18 hours directly west, for example, the landscape looks more or less the same.
Yeah, that's a similar deal from where I live. I had to drive to LA in a similar situation once, so that was only, not LA, not Los Angeles, Louisiana. Not halfway to LA. It's not fun.
How far away is that for you? How long driving?
It was about 12 hours. It's not as bad as what you did, not 18.
Yeah.
But
18 is 1,800 kilometers. Actually, it's closer to 1,900.
Never ask me to drive a bus, though, ever again, especially not for that long. That was a bad idea. That was the
Dare
worst
I
idea.
ask?
No, just I happened to have
Who
the
conned you
credentials.
into that?
Nobody wanted to do it, and the excuse was I had the official credentials to drive the bus on my license, and nobody else did. Although I know other people did, and they just didn't want to drive it. It was a choir trip.
See,
Back
this
in
is why I do.
2007.
I specifically avoided putting bus on my license, although I do have limo.
Yeah,
I can drive a limo, but not a bus.
Well, I mean, you do drive people around, so being able to do that's probably sort of required.
Yeah, well, there's absolutely no call for a limo out here, but I just put it on there as a novelty because, hey, it didn't cost anything extra.
Yeah.
So I've got a limo license, of all things.
I don't think I kept the bus on my license when I renewed it a few years ago. I think I took it off. So that never. I think that was still somewhere in the back of my memory.
Yeah,
But to be fair, it was 12 hours with people to talk to at least, even though I was driving.
yeah, 18 hours alone with a really, really good audiobook, actually. So that was all right.
Okay, so that's good. You're rescued. You don't want to get stuck in your headspace for 18 hours. Bad things happen.
Horrible, horrible things happen if you do that. Don't
Yeah.
ever do that.
Especially driving. You will get highway hypnosis. There's nothing you can do about it. It will happen. And you will run off
Yes.
the road.
Yes. So
Be safe, kids.
I got back just in time for my parents to blow up their computer and to discover that NBN construction has actually been carrying on in this region, although they have seemed to have stopped for the time being because reasons.
Ran out
But,
of money again, probably.
Maybe, or they got lost on the way down the street or something. I don't know.
Well, that sort of thing usually gets delayed because procurement of the materials has fallen behind the project.
That or just blind, stupid bureaucracy.
Yeah,
It's usually
maybe.
materials, from what I've seen.
Well, it would be usually materials in New Zealand, except that in New Zealand it's actually usually OSH.
Yeah.
Occupational safety and health has shut them down because they have a step ladder with one too many steps on it or something.
Yes, or they've got their hat on the wrong way or something.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a side effect of this half-completed NBN construction means that local internet and even landline phones are suffering horribly. If you actually pick up a landline phone in town at the moment, you get this horrendous static instead of a dial tone.
Yeah.
Like
People even use those, though?
Yes, some people. I don't.
We don't even have a landline. That costs
Unfortunately,
money.
we actually have to because naked DSL is not an option.
We don't have that
Because-
either. So
These
You
Well,
want
yeah,
to?
you
Oh,
yeah,
dear.
straight fiber. But
Oh, dear, I'm lagging.
oh dear. So looking around town, it looks like they've still got a few more boxes to go. If my pattern recognition is actually up to any sort of scratch, though, it looks like they're going to have to put a box right outside my house
they're waiting for the rains so they can see which places will be underwater.
and make sure to put them in those. Yes.
Yeah.
Ugh. So unfortunately, I'm going to be suffering through half-assed internet for a little bit longer, and then
Yeah,
in the
I
end,
believe Fern.
speaking of, that was actually got re-released and remastered. Parappa the Rapper.
Yeah, it does.
Weird game.
And I posted in the news channel that we were going to do. Though we didn't talk about it, but they've announced a new joint project between the Parappa the Rapper team and the Gitaru Man team.
Yes.
I see.
I loved
That'd be fun.
Gitaru Man.
I played Parappa on the demo disc a lot. You want to feel
Yeah.
old when they get to your house, Fern, if they come with the new routers modem combos. I called them a modem. That is apparently not correct anymore if that's where the internet comes in. It is just called a router, and it makes you look
It is-
really, really old.
It is an internet-enabled router now. Yes.
Here it's an ONT box
Okay. Why?
because you need an ONT box. I don't remember what ONT stands for, but it's the thing that connects you to the fiber, and
Right.
you plug your router into the ONT box.
Yeah.
Right.
We-
Okay.
We have something similar, but they don't have a name for that. They just have the modem router wombo combo because it's basically physically attached to that thing anyway. But it
Yeah.
makes them really confused if you say modem because they don't have modems anymore. That's not what they install, even though that's functionally what the dumb thing is.
Yeah. Because they're primarily doing fiber to the node around here, Australian retailers have been selling NBN enabled routers for the last few years. So
Assuming that at some point people would actually get it.
yeah, and possibly need it, and be able to use NBN features before their router burned out.
Well, I mean, the thing is that old routers simply can't do the speeds that high-speed internet needs.
That's right.
Like, we had to buy a new router because we had a really old one.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got a swankier one, or rather, I
Yeah.
bought it.
So, anywho, we should actually get back on track because we've got an awful lot to get through this show.
Yeah, but you threw a topic as far as I'm concerned. No, not really.
I know,
Let's
right?
not do another 3.5 hour show.
Of tangents.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Fern, your week.
My week has been PlayStation 4-y because it finally turned up right before I left. So it's yay, PlayStation's here. Bye. So played around with that. I'm actually really loving the console. It is a nice piece of machinery. I ended up getting the 1 terabyte Slim out of that really good JB Hi-Fi deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually played around using the PlayStation TV with it as well, which is surprisingly good. Like, I was expecting it to be, half-assed and terrible, but it's surprisingly good.
Yeah, it's unfortunate you don't have a Vita to use remote play with, because that feature is really fun to use.
Yeah, but I use remote play. So, a PlayStation TV, for those who don't know, it's a little box that's able to play digital Vita games, but it can also be used to remote play your PS4. So, I've got the PS4 at one end of the house, connected to the big TV, and the PlayStation TV in my room where I can just play it in here.
I see. I didn't know.
For some reason, So for some reason, it actually connects to the PS4 via the internet because logic.
What?
It sounds dumb, but nowadays that's actually more efficient. It's really stupid networking mumbo jumbo. Why? But that actually is more efficient.
In Australia,
Right.
though?
In
Not
Australia,
in Australia.
not in Australia so much.
In America,
It actually
definitely.
works. It's fine, mostly. So when the connection is actually good, it's really good. It comes through at 720p. It doesn't come through at 1080, but that's fine. I can
You
live
should
with
only
that.
get 2 frames of loss too. Normally,
Roundabout.
It uses the same tech as It should use the same tech as remote play. So
Yeah, it is. It's the same tech. So it's about 2 frames of loss. Input lag, for the most part, is minimal. I've seen it get up to maybe about 1/5 of a second at one point.
that's pretty bad for fighting games and stuff.
Oh,
And
for
some
fighting
precision
games,
platformers.
that's a no deal. And
Yeah,
precision platformers. But a lot of the time, if you it'll start that bad, and then as you play, it'll get better.
The PlayStation 4 controller itself, if you put an extended battery pack in it, the delay gets much better, is what I found. If you do that kind of stuff. If you're bouncing to different TVs from your system. Because the base battery inside the dumb thing is actually really bad. And it limits what it can pull from it, because eventually, after like a week of use, the dumb thing will start thinking, with statistics you can't read, that this thing is just always on low or medium battery life. So it'll start limiting the power it puts to the Wi-Fi. But if you stick an extra huge battery pack on there, you don't have that issue. If you're playing straight from the PS4, you'll never notice anything. You'll just have your normal 6-hour plastic controller.
I don't think I'll actually have an issue with this, because then with the PlayStation TV, the PS4 controller Bluetooth to the PS TV.
Okay, yeah. So it should be fine.
Yeah, so it shouldn't be a problem, but that's interesting to know that.
But yeah, I definitely recommend people get battery packs for their PS4 controllers.
Yeah,
It helps them substantially.
There is one minor gripe with the PS TV, how it does its remote play, and that's largely because if your connection starts failing, the first thing to go is visual quality. So when your things get busy and your network connection's kind of iffy, everything gets blurry really quick. It'll actually rather sacrifice visual quality before input lag.
It's probably not that bad a thing, because most things stepping down from 1080 to 720 are not that big of a deal.
I've had it down to 280.
Then yeah, you suddenly can't see anything in front of your face. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, at that point, 280p is called eye cancer. You can't see anything, and if you're playing a game like Horizon Zero Dawn and trying to do precision dodge rolls and things, not going to happen. You just got to jump away from the big blurry thing into possibly another blurry thing.
But don't you have to hit specific points on it?
So let's talk Horizon Zero Dawn, shall we? Tangent! Not tangent, segue. Even better. So that's the game I got with it, and I got to say, I really, really like it.
It looks fun.
It does. So the game centers around hunting. So you can go out and you can go stand toe-to-toe with giant robot monsters and hit them with your stick. But if you do that, you're going to die. You're going to get smushed, and I will laugh at you.
Well, they are rather bigger than you are, and it's not Monster Hunter.
Exactly. So the core idea of the game is you sit your prey, your giant your giant robot prey sitting around somewhere, and you sneak up to them in conveniently red grass because Aloy is a very, very bright redhead. So hiding in regular grass probably wouldn't work. So it's convenient that the long grass has red tips. So
Okay.
yeah, you sneak up onto it, and you can do a stealth kill for the smaller stuff and just press a button and she kills it. But bigger stuff, you need to target weak points, and that means hitting the right bit of the robot dinosaur with the right type of attack. So usually an elemental arrow. So they've got things like fuel tanks and weapons and things. So if you hit a weapon with, say, an arrow that does tear damage, there's a good chance it'll rip it off, or at least do enough damage that another one would do it. Hits certain fuel tanks with the opposing element, like you hit a fire. Well, actually, it's not even an opposing element; it's a matching element. You hit the fire, or the blaze fuel tank, as it's called, with a fire arrow, and it goes boom, and so on like that. That's the ideal way you take down giant robots. You exploit their weaknesses and take them down quickly and quietly. Otherwise, you end up with a whole herd of giant robots, and you get smushed. That said, the game delights in just throwing you out in the open every now and again. Usually whenever there's a boss fight or a important stronghold or something you need to take down, there's no cover. Or if you're in cover, it will force you out of it in the case of a few areas later on. So you need to still fight giant robots toe-to-toe. So adapt or die.
So it is Monster Hunter.
Kind of.
Probably not, but...
I feel the game really excels when you're stalking and you're hunting. When you're fighting toe to toe, not so much. Or if that's the case, at least let me use a mouse and keyboard for that. Because when you've got the giant fast moving robot and you're trying to use hold the the left trigger to focus your arrow bow, your right trigger to draw back your arm, and the right stick to aim and to go into a sort of a bullet time thing if you want to. It gets a bit much. And by the time you've lined up your shot, the robot's gone. It's moved, and it's probably chewing on your face. So
A conspicuous lack of combat bagpipe.
there is a conspicuous lack of combat bagpipe. You do, however, get a shotgun of sorts, and 3 different types of bow.
Okay.
Yeah, and a stick. Like she never loses the spear, and from what I've played, you get 1 upgrade near the start of the game, and that seems to be about it.
I see. It looks like a good video game. I've seen a lot of gameplay trailers about it, but it's still on the higher end of the price tag in the US right now because the AAA game that's still selling. So
yeah, it's
for
still a new release. So the plot, the game doesn't tell you much initially. It leaves a lot of things up into the mystery. For example, why are there giant robots around, and why did the apocalypse happen? So it's fair to assume that the two are related. But digging around, I haven't found the full answer of it. But my guess, based on audio logs and things that are around the place, is rogue AI caused the apocalypse.
No,
That's my
really?
I know, right? This is shocking. I have a feeling, though, it's something they're going to throw something stupid in there and make it about aliens or something. I don't know.
You do it, Yoko Taro, and write out what happened in a book, and then reference it in Nier Automata, and then directly say that's not actually what happened.
Go read the book, you pleb.
No, like if you read the book, you just have the wrong idea. You just retcon the whole book.
Why would you do that?
Because Yoko Taro.
Because troll.
Taro. He really wanted to put octopus aliens in. That's his reason.
I see.
You only find their corpses. That book is actually not canon. They didn't blow up the Earth.
Right. Okay then. What else? There's a lot of questions about Aloy herself, like who is her mother and what did she do to get the kid exiled. I'm thinking at this point she's some sort of clone baby or cryogenically frozen orphan or something like that.
How many hours in are you?
I'm not entirely sure actually. It's a ways. Like I think I'm about 15 hours in.
How long is? Oh wait, I guess you don't know, but
I don't know.
Oh.
It's a fairly big map. I've explored maybe about a bit over half of it. So, if for those who don't know, are familiar with the area of the world, you start in the Colorado Rockies, and then you kind of swing around north to what's left of Salt Lake City, and then down into the Navajo. So it's a fairly big geographic area it follows. But I'm not sure exactly what's happened, but it looks like everything east of Denver may be underwater, and possibly a good chunk of Denver itself as well. So I don't know. It never actually states, like, the apocalypse is supposed to happen sometime in the year 2060 something. But apparently by that point we would have developed holograms and all sorts of things like that. But science. But it's never actually stated at this point how long after that the game is set. Like, there's still things running around, handheld devices with batteries that are still working, and evidence of buildings and things, but a lot of it's been reclaimed by nature, which is actually really, really pretty.
Yeah. So it's got to be like 100 years after that at least, then, if like whole buildings are run by overgrowth. Well, it depends on the type of overgrowth. If the kudzu from the southeast is up there,
if it's kudzu,
it's next week.
Yeah. It's got to be a few hundred years, I'd say. So, yeah. I'm going to keep playing it because I'm really thoroughly enjoying this game. There's still a lot of questions up in the air as to what's going on, and hopefully they'll get answered in some sort of meaningful way. Because otherwise, the whole thing's kind of rendered pointless.
Yep.
So,
I'll be picking it up as soon as it drops under 40. That's the line I'm paying for it.
Yeah. I recommend it. It's good. Games I don't necessarily recommend. Well, actually, one I do is Bloodborne. I've only played a little bit of Bloodborne because it wants to download 10 gigabytes of patch.
It's okay. That one actually uninstalls the crap from before when it's done, so you don't keep a billion gigs on your drive.
I've got a terabyte hard drive in the thing. It's not too big a deal.
I said half a terabyte would be enough on my PS4 too, and I got filled up by one video game.
Which video game?
Street Fighter.
Oh, wait, of course. I shouldn't have asked. It's of course there's something stupid happening. It's Capcom.
Yeah.
You can always count on Capcom.
So yeah, I've played a little bit of Bloodborne. It's basically Dark Souls wearing a different hat, but that's no news to anyone really.
Well, it's Dark Souls with all of the broken crap filed off.
Also that.
It's Dark Souls except fun. It actually encourages you to play the game instead of play the waiting game.
Yeah, I'm not sure how the patch changes the game, but at this point it's extremely Dark Souls. Like, I got out of the tutorial area, I walked down a street and killed a few guys who were brandishing axes. Decided to have a look and see what was hidden behind some breakable barrels. There's a fat guy with a giant axe there. The game just flipped me the bird and killed me.
It's actually pretty easy to kill, but it's after playing for a while, it doesn't take very long to get into the aggressive mindset in that game, and you just like, oh wait, I don't have to wait forever before I attack these guys, because they blatantly leave openings in all the attacks in these games. You're not required to hold up a shield and block all the time.
I found
in Dark Souls you get a chance to attack once every half hour
or something like that. Yeah. I found that a lot of the characters attacks when they're characters waving their weapon around and swinging up for a big attack, you tap the left trigger, you use your gun, you interrupt them.
Yeah, bullets are limited though, so you can't spam it. You'll learn. You eventually learn which monsters require you to riposte them and which ones don't, and you can take down pretty easy. What weapon did you pick, by the way, for your starting weapon?
I picked the blunderbuss and the cane.
Okay, I picked the cane. I don't remember what gun I picked. It's largely irrelevant what gun you pick.
Yeah, so. I do enjoy the whole dual mode option for the weapons. Like, the cane is a cane and it's kind of wielded like a sword, but the second mode is a whip. Yeah,
which is what you'll be using to clear all the little dudelets, like all the massive peasants and farmers in the middle of the town square that are not too far from the fat guy.
It does less damage, but it does massive AoE damage attacks. So yeah, you just use it to clear the dudelets, and then you turn it back into a cane, and you get to be dapper as all hell.
Yeah, and then you'll still keep it in whip mode for the bosses because they're either A, really, really huge and you don't want to get too close to them unless you have to, or B, you got to use, the second boss, you can cheese it and stick it behind geometry, then you'll figure that out immediately. And you can just whip him from the other side of a bunch of gravestones.
Whip it good. Yeah. So I'm going to play some more of that once the patch comes in, because I'm not sure if it adds new content or rebalances or whatever it does. And yeah, I'd rather not get used to one mode before they change everything.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I like it a lot better than Dark Souls. But comparing it to Dark Souls, do you ever play Dark Souls?
I played Dark Souls, yeah.
Okay. I didn't like Dark Souls very much. I
I enjoy the theming of Bloodborne a lot more. It's a lot more unique. Like Dark Souls is very just, here's a castle. It's full of monsters. Off you go.
Yeah, very D&D fantasy-esque.
If there's a plot in here somewhere, we're not going to tell you what it is. You probably won't care.
Yeah, Bloodborne will tell you the story if you read everything that comes out, you can figure out what happened without having to go on a wiki troll for 5 hours.
Yeah, but I really like the Victorian theme, and it's not steampunk really. It's just grim.
Yeah,
very dark.
It's
very grim dark.
It's very Victorian horror with eldritch abominations everywhere.
And werewolves, because werewolves.
Yeah, the mashing of eldritch horror and Victorian horror is really fun. It's very unique. You see it a lot, but it's done really well there. It's one of the more common horror mashups.
Yeah, you do see it a lot, but you don't see it done well very often.
Yeah, but at this point, it's because it's done so often. Is why you don't see many.
Yeah. And the other game I played a bit of was, because I went bargain bin hunt diving, was No Man's Sky.
Why would you even?
Because it was in the bargain bin for like $10. Because I'm going to try this, see if it's how bad it is. Hang on, let me just grab something out of the Stings list here. Where is it? Here it is. I'm just going to play this as bed music because it is appropriate. YouTube won't be able to hear it, but it is the terrible harmonica version of Jurassic Park. There we go. Let me see. There we go. So
Hope it doesn't overpower our voices too much.
If it is, suffer. So I played it vanilla. Do not play No Man's Sky vanilla. Just don't. Do not.
Just don't play it at all.
Also don't. So it's got the word I probably best describe to a lot of things in that game, as it was at launch, is pointless. You have an inventory which is small, and things don't stack very high in there, so you will fill up very quickly, and that is pointless because there's absolutely no reason not to be able to carry more. You have shields and life support systems which you need to charge constantly, but they are charged up with carbon, which is laying around everywhere. So it's again pointless. Don't. That's still in the game, by the way, as classic mode. So I was really, I'm not going to say disappointed because the my bar of expectation was rather low at that point, but yeah. That said, once I patched it and got to trying the new survival mode, everything started to make a little bit more sense, and now things are just annoying rather than completely pointless. So yeah, it's a lot more picky about what resources recharge things, and inventory items or resources you get will go a lot further. But you also start on an extremely hostile planet, which means you're constantly battling shields and things like that, so you can't go very far. So, I don't know. I've got to play more of it, I think, to see exactly what's going to happen with the survival mode. But I've got to ask, why was survival mode, if not the base game mode, not in it at launch?
So hold on, what is the base game mode?
The
relative
base game
to the survival mode? Like, what are the differences between the two?
Well, survival mode has it'll kill you, whereas the base game will not.
So hold on, what is your opposition in the base mode then?
There are drones around the place, but if you ignore them, they'll leave you alone. Same with a lot of the wildlife. There's a little bit of environmental hazard, but not enough to really stop you from doing anything. It should honestly be called creative mode. It's not, because there's also a creative mode now. So it's like creative mode, except without infinite resources. You still got to do a little bit of resource gathering and exploring.
It all sounds incredibly dull.
It is. I played maybe half an hour of unpatched No Man's Sky, and I just gave it up as extremely boring. I'd also spawned on a desert planet, so everything was just rock and the occasional bush, and that was it. That was all to look at. Very, very boring. At least with survival mode, the game will challenge, or try to challenge you anyway. There's a line, honestly, that it doesn't seem to know where it is between challenge and annoying, and it jumps back and forth between the two. And this isn't even before I got off the first planet, so I don't know what's going to happen after I actually manage to get to my spaceship, which is for some reason a long way away. So I don't know. I'll probably poke more at it, see if it actually, justifies itself.
Well,
But
it
at this
counts. You don't
point-
have a whole lot of hope for that.
No, I do not. But yeah, unpatched No Man's Sky should not have happened. Vanilla No Man's Sky, as it launched, should not have happened. It was awful. Survival mode is at least playable. It gives you a point and it gives you purpose.
But you wouldn't do it if you had anything else to do.
Maybe. I don't know. It does seem to be annoyingly pretentious in places. Like whenever you die, it gives you some quote, which range from annoyingly smug to, just outright laughing at you.
I see.
But in an annoying, pretentious way.
Oh, fortune cookie dust. I forgot about those. Those used to be having.
Yes.
They used to have a trope page.
Oh, there you go.
But
They
they were
probably still
supposed to
do.
be funny.
See, when they are supposed to be funny, they tend to be rather amusing. When they're trying to be profound, they come across as smug and obnoxious.
Like Traherne.
Speaking of smug and obnoxious, why bring him up? The most punchable character in MMOs ever. Except he's a tree, so it would probably hurt.
He's Traherne. He's something special.
He is.
At least
certainly
everybody seems to think so.
He is something special. He needs a punch in the face, is what he needs. That's how special he is. Ugh. So, there you go. One good game, one game I haven't really played, and one game that is bad but is trying to be good, but it really isn't. I've got one other game I'm going to talk about, but we'll come back to that in the news because my whole results of that game was meh.
Okay.
But it's not even annoying and frustrating and kind of pointless in the same way No Man's Sky. It's just meh. But we'll come back to that later. Foreshadowing.
Okay. So, what else? Got anything else?
No, that's it for now. I've only just started poking around at the Yugimon's game at the moment, and they're doing a new event with new challenges that pop up. I think there's only maybe 5 of them in this set. The first 4 are really easy, and the 5th one kind of throws something completely asinine at you. But it's worth 50 gems if you do it. So that's a booster pack.
I see. So yeah, I want to play that again, but I gotta get to it.
Yeah.
I got distracted.
Yeah. So, Vol, your week, sir.
My week hasn't been especially eventful. It's much like most of my weeks lately, although I did hear that the report is back from my examiners, but of course they won't show me because you're not allowed to see it until I think they give you 10 days to look at it or something before you have to do your defense. I'm not even sure what the reasoning is, but that's the way it goes.
It seems like awfully contrary, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like you're allowed to look at it, but you're only allowed to look at it for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, so you're kind of on a
understand.
very big, tight time limit to prepare your defense.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know really how it goes. There seems to be a general consensus that it's not difficult, but it's also something that probably depends very heavily on who your examiners are, and I don't know mine, so I don't know how that'll go, but I'll just have to wing it. I've got published work that it's been cited, half a dozen times by various other scientists, so it's got a certain amount of credibility, and I'm basically going to ride my credibility rather than my thesis, because my thesis is not great. What did I do during the week? Regarding my whinging about Mythic Plus last week, they have decided to capitulate to a certain extent. So instead of penalizing everybody in order to make people, because Blizzard's problem, to quickly restate, is that they feel that people are focusing on doing content that is below their skill level quickly, as opposed to challenging content that is at their skill level and doing it slowly. So
Right.
their method of fixing this was just to make the entire whole process unrewarding, so nobody wants to do it anymore.
Well, no, that's the opposite of what they should be doing.
It wasn't a big hit, let's just say.
Oh.
But they having fielded more than 50 pages of almost unanimously negative feedback, they've decided that so maybe we should actually incentivize doing what we want instead of disincentivizing it in order to get people to do it. This is the sort of thing that you shouldn't need to explain to a toddler, much less adult game
one of these
developers.
days I'm going to need to set up a drop-in of some description. Get half of the durs from I don't know, drawn together or something.
But yeah, so they've decided that what they're going to do instead is the higher up you get, while at 15, at rank 15, you're still going to get reduced loot. Like they're keeping the reduced loot at 15. As you climb past there, I think it's at 15, it might be at 10. As you climb past there, you get a stacking increase to the amount of loot that you get. So by the time you get to plus 20, you've got a 100% chance to get a fourth piece. If you beat the timer, by the time you get to 25, you've got a 100% chance to get a fifth piece if you beat the timer, and so on and so forth. So it gives you a real incentive to play at difficult levels because you've got a really decent chance of getting loot. Whereas before,
That sounds a lot better.
before there was no reason to ever go past like the minimum amount that you need to get the item level that you want, because you're just wasting your time in that case.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a very positive change. And you know, I think that it would have been hell to pay if they hadn't made it, because people were very, very angry. And as far as raid progression goes, this week we didn't get any new bosses down, but we got Crozus down with a minimum of fussing about, which is unusual. We only wiped a couple of times before we pulled it together, and we made pretty decent progress on Tichondrius. I think we got him down to like 7% or something like that. We just need to clean it up a bit and we'll have a kill. Tichondrius is a breath of fresh air now, because Crozus, we got stuck on Crozus for weeks, and he's really boring, like a really boring fight. That you've got no choice, got to do it, but it's just absolutely mind-numbing because all that you ever do is basically tunnel the boss. There's not really much else to do, especially if you're a tank.
Tank and spank.
Yeah, like there are ads and you've got to kill the ads, but generally speaking, the only thing you've got to do is like when he shoots a beam down the right side of the bridge, you move to the left and vice versa. That's most of what you have to do summed up right there. But yeah, Tichondrius, on the other hand, has a whole bunch of shenanigans to do, and it's much, much more interesting, and there's a much more significant role for tanks and so forth, and you got to use a lot more class utility to have people soak and immune various boss abilities and so on and so forth. It's a very, very interesting fight by contrast, but I don't know if it's genuinely a very interesting fight or whether Crozus just wore me out so much that anything is interesting at this point. But yeah, and it's things like fights like this that make me think, oh well, it's worth continuing to raid and WoW, because there's this interesting challenge and we're working together and gradually getting better at it, and soon we'll overcome it and we'll be able to move on to the next one. But yeah, it's I'm still very dubious about Blizzard's capacity to recognize when a fight is good and when a fight is bad. So yeah, I don't know, some of the fights in Tomb that we've seen so far look like they will be good, although some of them are a bit strange and have weird designs that don't make a lot of sense and have parts that are really interesting and parts that are mind-numbingly boring. I'm not really sure why. But yeah. What else did I do this week? Oh, I hit rank, what is it, 51? I don't remember. Whatever rank it is that I've gotten all of the traits maxed out on my Brewmaster weapon except for Concordance of the Legion Fall. And I looked at it, and I looked at it, and I looked at it, and it works out to something like, over the course of time, an average of about 0.35 by my eyeball estimate percent damage reduction for 520 million artifact power.
Yikes!
520 million. That is not a small number. That is a big number. And
I think that's a big number.
That is a big number.
That's a Disgaea big number. Is how big the numbers on this stuff is getting.
I can't do it. I can't bring myself to do it. I'm just gonna tool around with some of my other weapons a little bit, play a few ults, muck around, that kind of thing, and just let the artifact knowledge tick over and build up and accumulate, and just not worry about it. I'll come back and take another crack at it once I can get 100 million on one from one quest or whatever as the curve ramps up, because I can't stomach the idea. It's obscene. It's a minuscule improvement for a grotesque amount of time invested. So yeah, I put a halt on that, and so I was sort of a bit at a loss for what I was going to do with myself, and because I'm eternally curious about things I really shouldn't be curious about, I started a new game plus of Zillia.
Oh god, why?
Why?
Well, I actually found it interesting in an annoying sort of way. I'm not particularly fond of grade system New Game Plus, but it does have its advantages in that you get more perks, even if you don't get as much stuff carried over, unless you do a 100% clear, which I never do on Tales games because it just gets to be work very quickly. But the interesting thing, I suppose, is I decided I did my first playthrough as Jude, so I did my second playthrough as Mila, so I could see what Ari saw, and I understand now why his acrimony for the game is so much greater than mine, because I just thought it was blah, but the game is a slashed up mess. It's not just one big chunk that is missing. If you play as Mila, the game is just a hacked up mess. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why they should never have included it in the game. It's not worth it.
It's just you don't get the whole story. It's not there.
It's not even that. It's not even just that. Like, that would be bad, and it is bad that you're constantly missing chunks of story. But there's like out of every 2 or 3 story events, there will be one scene which is different, and the scenes that are different, how do I say, Mila's ones are filler. Like, they're like, you know how in the game you can hold down R1 when you're in the field and it will pop up a message telling you what you have to do next?
Yeah.
That's what Mila's ones are. All of Jude's ones are character development. Mila's is just her monologuing about the next location she's going to. The only exception to that so far has just been a scene where the female, one of the female bad guys molests her. Other than that, there's not anything other than monologuing happening, really. And it opens up all of these gaping plot holes that basically oblige you to have played Jude first, because you never get introduced to Elise. Elise just sort of waltzes up and joins the group, because all of that stuff happens between Jude and Elise exclusively, and none of her behavior makes any sense because you didn't see any of it.
The most forewarning you get is a few very well hidden skits. That's about it. And even then, it's not that good.
It really does not. It doesn't make sense. Like, I haven't played very far. Like, I've only put a few hours in. I stopped to do a bit of grinding in the Flood Meadows because I like being overpowered, especially when I've earned it through suffering through the game once before. And I kept all the devil weapons so that I'm even more ridiculously overpowered. But the story is just such it's a catastrophe. It's an absolute catastrophe. Like, I can't imagine how it would be possible for Zestiria to be worse than your experience of Zillia.
It is. Don't worry.
I can't even conceive of it, because Zillia has been so bad so far. Like, I didn't particularly think that Zillia was great when I played through as Jude, but I didn't understand why you hated it so much, and now I know. It's because, played from the point of view of Mila, the story is complete garbage, because none of the character development takes place that is supposed to. The problem with Mila is that Mila's the most insular of the characters. She goes off on her own more often than anybody else, and all of the character development for characters like Elvin and Elise and that, they all take place through conversations with Jude, often when Mila's not around, and so you don't see any of it. All of the characters end up being cutouts.
Yeah, and they managed to rescue Alvin's character development, but that's about it, and he's still missing most of it. You have to band-aid your game and go watch what you're missing a lot of the time. But the other thing is, Mila doesn't really have any... She has one character boost arc where she gets a little bit better, and then she's pretty stagnant. There's one part where she bumps up, but she doesn't really have what I would call traditional character development. A lot of what she says is the exact same thing. She's very static. So it doesn't really matter any of the special scenes you get when she's on her own, because it doesn't matter.
And there's
She's still
also
going to feel it when she goes back.
there's also this really, really weird scene that I don't understand near the start. And it's the one where she gets molested by the woman presser.
Psychopath? Yeah.
Huh?
It was the psychopath, the one in blue.
Presser, the blue one. It doesn't make sense because it is abundantly clear that they're looking for the key of Kresnik. And Presser finds the key of Kresnik while she's interrogating Mila, and then for whatever reason doesn't take it.
Heck,
I can't work out what's going on. It's like a plot hole. Like she pulls it. Mila's got it on her person, and Presser's searching her and molesting her while she's at it. She pulls out the key of Kresnik and then just tosses it aside. But everybody knows that the key of Kresnik is what everybody's looking for. And
I don't know.
I can't make head or tail of it. It doesn't make any sense. That scene makes a lot more sense on Jude's side because you see he has a bit of a natter to Elvin while Mila wanders off, and then they see Mila in trouble and they run over, and Jude hatches the plan to get her out of Presser's clutches, and then they do that, and you have a fight with the crab monster thing, and then so on and so forth. And from Mila's point of view, she gets overpowered ridiculously easily without putting up a fight, and then just sort of just hovers there in the air being molested until the others come along and then instantaneously deliver her from the situation with no effort because all the planning happened off screen. Like, it's
Alvin,
just
shoot the
so
rock.
awful.
Yeah,
It's so awful. Who wrote that? Who wrote that? I mean, come on. The entire game, I think, would have been better if Mila's story wasn't there. Like, if they just had never provided that option so that nobody ever had to be exposed to that terrible travesty of a game.
Yeah.
Because the game is merely mediocre if you play Jude's. It's when you play Mila's that it becomes really bad.
Yeah, I've had to band-aid my experience by going and watching a bunch of the differences. I haven't seen them all, but because I don't feel like replaying the entire game. But it sounds about right, because when you're playing when you're playing in that scene, is that the one where they shoot the rock and it turns into the giant crab thingy? Turns out to be an evil monster. Because all you see is Mila is she's just getting grabbed on, and Jude and Alvin run up, and Jude just goes, "Shoot the rock." And that's it. That's all the planning you get for that scene.
No.
No.
Jude doesn't even say shoot the rock. Alvin just shoots the rock.
Okay.
You don't even know what he's doing.
Okay.
It doesn't even make sense. He shoots the rock and then you have a fight with a crab monster. Like it's a complete non sequitur. You have no way of knowing why you are doing such an absurd thing. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. The scenes are blurring together a little bit, but I didn't like that video game that much. I still like the end boss, the idea, the ending of the story, but you're going to see why I really didn't have a taste for it when you get up there, if you keep playing that route.
I probably will, because I can more or less romp through it. But because while I don't like grade systems, I picked up enough points along my first playthrough to get most of the stuff to make things easier. Like I picked up double XP, I picked up double gold, I picked up double item drops, I kept the devil weapons, a few things like that. So my power curve is through the roof compared to what is expected.
Yeah.
So
maybe
yeah,
it's because I band-aided Zillia by watching Jude's episodes on YouTube and a little bit of the differences. But yeah, Zestiria's worse. Just objectively in almost every way.
I just can't even comprehend how that's possible, because Zillia doesn't even make sense from Mila's storyline at all.
Right, yeah. It's just Zestiria's just bad. A bad video game, a bad Tales game. Berseria is really good though. Please, if you like Tales, start there. Just skip Zestiria. Go do a wiki read. The wiki's been really bad about updating with Berseria stuff. So do that and then go play Berseria and just skip like Zillia. Well, if you can try Jude's story and Zillia and then just skip Zestiria. We've been on a downhill slide for quite a while now. But we're coming back up, I hope.
I didn't think Jude's story was all that bad. Like the parts that make it bad are basically the things that Mila's responsible for. Like there's no real good reason why Jude should fall in love with Mila. It doesn't make sense for him to do so. Admire her, maybe. Fall in love with her, no. Because her character has no emotional content. There's basically nothing to fall in love with.
It's okay, he becomes a chicken later in another universe.
I see. That's a lie I don't see. But yeah, it's not good. I'll probably romp through it just to see what the differences are, but yeah, I can understand why your initial take on it was so negative compared to mine, because like I understood that it was a bad game. I didn't understand just why you hated it as much as you did, but I didn't expect that the stories would be so different. Because I thought that it would just, it'll cut out the parts where Jude is by himself, and then that'll be more or less it. No, I didn't think that they would constantly be cutting out any scene, any time where they move more than 20 meters apart from each other, and you would get explanatory exposition of something you already know from Mila and character development from Jude. Like, it's not really what I expected.
There might be some early lore facts that came in there that I don't know. I can't think. It's been too long. I've effectively blotted most of the plot out except for the high points because it just didn't stick. So it's hard for me to remember the game just because it's like that. It's so cut up that I'm just ugh. A lot of games are like that, but Zillia is one of the worst ones. Zestiria is somehow even worse though. Don't worry. The anime's way better, by the way. For the little bit I watched up to like until they got to the Berseria commercial, whatever episode number that was.
Yeah, it's like the anime isn't, it's not great, but it's entertaining enough.
It's
like
a mile better.
You can watch that as sort of light entertainment. It's quite good in that sense. So yeah, I have sentenced myself to playing that through. I don't think that I've ever finished a New Game Plus of anything. I'm not sure. No, that's not true. I've finished the New Game Plus of Darksiders. Other than that, I don't think I've ever finished a New Game Plus because I usually get distracted part way. So like I've got in progress New Game Plus for like the Persona games. I've got new Game Plus in progress for Tales of Graces, for Devil Survivor. Like I always start them and I never finish them. But what else? I suppose while we're on the topic of anime, it's still more or less continuing in an even keel. Like, there's not really anything that I'm particularly excited about, which is kind of disappointing. It would have been nice if there was something. There were more things that were really cool, but generally speaking, I think that Recreators is probably still the strongest. It's a very interesting show because it works predominantly with very cliche things, but the director has just done a superlative job of bringing out the finest parts of those things, the parts that are really good, the parts that are important, and like has managed to include legit character development for characters that have no right having good character development. But yeah, it's probably the most solid. There have been a few really good parts, and I like a lot of the subversions that are in place. Like Alistaria is transparently in Arturia XP. Like they have clearly decided that this is this character, and we're going to put them in, and then we're going to show how they go straight for the bad side because of their goal directed urge to save whatever it is that they're protecting has basically blinded them to everyone else. So this is basically like the lighter and softer version of a story where Saber goes bad, basically.
Oh dear.
Because Alistaria has basically decided that the entire world can go hang because she's only interested in saving the one she comes from and getting back there. And basically has blinded herself to all of the implications of what she's doing because the only thing she's interested in is pursuing her own justice. And then there's other ones like Mamika, who is basically your traditional pink-haired magical girl with a frilly dress and a wand who will defeat her rival and then become friends with them, except that doesn't work in the real world. Nobody wants to become friends with you after you beat them to a pulp. So it's basically she's a fish out of water who doesn't understand anything because she comes from a lighter and softer setting where nothing ever goes quite as bad as it does in the real world if you do those things.
I see.
Like she's the opposite of a deconstruction. Like she is being deconstructed, but her world is the opposite of a deconstruction. Like in a deconstruction story, you bring something fantastical into the real world and show how it applies there, which is what's happening to her. But she's at a loss because she's been brought into this story from a story where all of the stuff that is supposed to apply. All of those kids show tropes are supposed to apply, but they don't. And it's quite interesting in that sense. And there's a lot of other characters, like characters that you would normally expect to be bad guys. It's like, oh, well, they've been freed from having to deal with all the crap in their world, so they have no interest in being evil anymore. So yeah, there's some interesting subversions at work there. And generally speaking, it's been surprisingly low key. There've been a couple of good action scenes, but generally speaking, it's been low key, and there's been a lot of discussion about what's going on. And an interesting twist in it's not the most recent episode, I don't think, but it's the most recent one I watched. Unlike what happens in these shows usually, the government caught wind of it pretty early and is getting involved. Like they've figured out that something is up because they don't have the Kotamine Church cleaning up the battles in the Grail War. There's nobody doing that job. So you see all of these people get caught on camera and whatnot, and it's become an issue. And so they've created a special task force to try and work out what the heck is going on. And they end up contacting the protagonist's group that he's cobbled together. And basically the government behaves in a mostly cooperative way with them after a few false starts. But which I thought was interesting, because normally these stories just factor that entirely out with a hand wave like they do in Fate Zero, where the authorities never get involved.
Yeah, either that or they make it worse.
Yeah, that happens sometimes as well. But yeah, in this case, I mean, it remains to be seen whether or not they manage to accomplish anything, but they have certainly entered with the best of intentions, and they are treating the people involved like people as opposed to things. Yeah. But that's one of the stronger ones this season. It's the one story-wise that I look forward to the most, probably. But yeah, it's just the season is so light on good content. Like, I watched a bunch of episodes last night, and I'm like, yeah. And it's sort of like, and some of the really bad ones, I don't know how they're so bad. Like, Clockwork World, I can't remember for 100% sure, but I think it's by the same author as No Game No Life. But No Game No Life is interesting and engaging, and the Clockwork Planet is just garbage. It's just complete rubbish. It doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't even try to engage. Like, I don't understand how these two things are by the same person. It doesn't make sense. How could this be? But it is. As confusing as that is for me. And yeah, like this just, I would say that most of the bad content this season has the feeling of imitating better content from previous seasons and trying to cash in, or something like that.
I don't remember the list, but when I think of the vague picture of this season, that sounds about right.
Yeah, that's what it feels like anyway. I mean, there's still enough sort of grist for the mill there, but there's not many things that are really exciting. Like, other than Sakura Quest and Recreators, there's nothing which really stand out as, oh well, this is an excellently produced show. Those two are produced very, very well, but the bulk of the content really isn't. Cerithus was asking in the anime channel about Symphogear, which I haven't watched. It is a musically themed show, and it's basically about magical girls who wear power armor with the power of rock, basically.
It sounds completely bonkers, honestly.
But yeah, I've secured viewing of that, and I'm going to have a look at that out of curiosity, because I love musically themed stories, and like there's a good reason.
Power armor.
Well, I mean, power armor is always good as well, but
True.
Like, there's a reason why a game as mediocre as Artanelico makes my top 5 every time I think of what my favorite games are. Is because I love the musical themes so much. But yeah, I might take a poke at that if I've got some time during the week, depending on how preparation for my thesis et al. Goes. We'll just have to wait and see. For some reason, I found it really annoying getting the email about saying, "Oh, the report is back from my from my examiners," because the chairman of the oral exam was like, "Yeah, I've got the reports and I'm going to hold on to them until date X when I'll give them to you." I was like, "Yeah, thanks, I guess."
Why though?
But because that's the protocol. It's how it's supposed to go.
The There might be a good reason for it if you're lucky. It's usually a coin flip with bureaucracy. Was the rule a good idea or not?
Well, the reason is to make sure that it's standardized for everybody, I presume, because I don't know if there's like a submission date as such, or rather the submission date is that 10-day period, but it can be earlier that they can arrive. So it's probably to make sure that everybody has the reports for the same amount of time, so you don't end up with like some people who they get their examination report done really quickly and submit it for the candidate to look over, and then that candidate has a month to like work through their presentation, whereas somebody else only gets 10 days. That's probably the reason, if I had to guess. But have I done anything else worth noting this week? Can't really think of anything. I spent a lot of the early part of the week reading at Shotcut and trying to get those episodes up, but eventually I managed it, and I got the past 2 weeks of show episodes put up on YouTube, so you can find those on our YouTube channel now, and you can find links to them in our Discord.
Yeah, they will be put up for archive. Actually, if you're listening to this now, they're probably already up. This is me talking to people in the future. Hello, future.
Isn't technology amazing? We can talk to the future.
I know, right? Stupid past me.
I offered to try and record it. But I didn't have anything I could really play that I could think of to keep on the background as background video. So, all right. So, what else? You got anything else?
Don't think so offhand.
All right.
Since we got an email, let's go. I'll go ahead and do my week before we do the email. Before we jump into that, I think.
Okay, go for it.
So, it's compare and contrast week.
Yay!
This will be fun. So I beat on ukulele to death about how much I did not like certain parts of that game and how it came so close and it didn't hit the mark.
Yeah.
So went back and played Banjo-Tooie, the first level. I think I mentioned this last week, but I'll say it again anyway in case I forgot. I played the first level of Banjo-Tooie to make sure it wasn't the nostalgia goggles. And no, that game's way better.
Yes, it is.
First level of Banjo-Tooie just makes more sense. They divide it right. It's one level. It's a fairly big level, but it's broken up into subsections. You can clearly tell when you're done with an area. So no, it was not just nostalgia goggles. Ukulele is, in fact, quite a bit inferior to Banjo-Tooie.
Yes.
As far as just raw level design goes. And the animation ain't that big a step up either, nor the graphics. So if you want a good collectathon 3D, go there. So this kind of put me in a mood, though, because it was a very good game for audiobooks, and I wanted to listen. I mostly this week just wanted to sit down and relax and listen to audiobooks while I'm working and waiting on phone calls. So I didn't want to do something that required a whole lot of attention. So at least something with no text that I had to read. So I decided I was going to go back and 100% the past two Shantae games. This is how this week started. So they're on separate systems. So I started on Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, and that game's really fun. I finally got around and 100%ed it this time and remembered most of the puzzles from the first half and forgot all of the second half of them. But yeah, you get a different ending for 100%ing it. It's not that much better because the ending is completely ignored in Half Genie Hero because they didn't know they would suddenly get an amount of funding that said, okay, you can make Pirate's Curse now and finish it. So they thought it would come after Half Genie Hero, but instead it got released before because they got the publisher was like, oh, your Kickstarter was successful? Okay, you can make the other one.
Yeah, it's a bit jarring because I played Pirate's Curse before Half Genie Hero, which
most people do.
Most people do.
Risky does something nice at the end, and she gets a bit of character development. And it's like, oh, all the past games are all making sense. It's all coming together now. They actually had a plan, and they completely ignored Half Genie Hero because they thought Half Genie Hero would come first.
Yeah, so the plot's a bit out of whack there. But as far as gameplay wise, I enjoyed Pirate's Curse significantly more than Half Genie Hero. That's not saying Half Genie Hero is bad though.
Pirate's Curse, as far as layout goes, I did. But when you're actually solving puzzles, I like those better in Half Genie Hero. The layout levels is better in Pirate's Curse in general because I'm going to find a new term for Metroidvania because I hate it. It doesn't make sense. It's as bad as roguelike.
Exploration platformer. Try that.
Like before, most of the action is only the boss fight. So yeah, exploration platformers are, I guess, works. So we'll use that as a temporary replacement until I can think of a better one. Yeah. But the genre has been pretty stagnant until Shantae got its buffer again, and then the Bloodstained Ritual of the Night got its Kickstarter going off. So yeah, but in these games you're primarily not you're primarily not fighting in these types of platformers. You're solving puzzles and looking for collectibles around the world in the 2D environment. And you have a map that fills out as you go. Pirate's Curse, the level layout, is a traditional exploration platformer. Like, you have the map, you fill it out, the world's ever expanding, and everything's connected, and you gotta travel through the actual world if you want to get somewhere. Hashini Hero is not. It's more like, it's still, if we use the words we used in exploration platform, it's still strictly true, but each area is subdivided into its own level. You talk to Sky, and she puts you on the bird, and you and her go, and she puts you on Wrench, because Wrench is now, for some reason, can metamorph into a super huge version of himself that can fly people everywhere. And she just flies you to everywhere. And when you're done, you go back to Scuttletown. It auto boots you back to Scuttletown. And then you get on the bird and you fly the next level or go back to the old ones to collect more stuff. So it's not... Yeah. So its level design is not as good as not Risky's Revenge, Pirate's Curse, because the world is not forced to be interconnected.
Yeah.
So I imagine
it's just a series of levels.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's still plenty of the standard puzzles you would solve in these types of games in those worlds, and those puzzles themselves are actually way better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Hashini Hero was not a failed Kickstarter by any measure, and
No,
100%
definitely.
in solving some of the harder puzzles in there. They're not. None of them are like obtuse. Like, you got to really twist your brain to figure out what to do. But you'll get 100% without a guide. Is basically what I'm saying. But yeah, the ones that are there are fairly fun, but they're both also fairly easy games. They're where I would recommend you start if you want to get into the exploration platformer 2D genre. So, after I played these games 100% of them and had a good time with them, I decided, okay, well, the genre's not dead, and it made really good for listening to audiobooks, which is what I really wanted to do this week. And I wanted to finish, because I wanted to finish the Worm series. I'm finally getting near the end of it. But I'll save that for later when I talk about that and I actually finish it. But the next game I played, I'm going to talk about last because it segues. But the next game I played was Ori and the Blind Forest, the indie darling from several years ago. It's one of these type of games. It is a very fast game, very quick. You level up very, very quickly. The game is only as hard as how impatient you are. Is what I found with this game. The game is actually very easy if you think about it. But they give you a way to solve a lot of the puzzles in really obtuse ways. If you have just the handset of older abilities and you go explore the older levels early, before you have what they say is, they give you, at the very end, they give you a light dash, lets you blast through broken walls. This is the biggest way you get stuck. But if you go bopping around the world, well before you get that, because the last upgrade you get, you'll get weird things that let you pick up and throw enemies. And you can move something that throws an explosive projectile all the way to wherever that wall is. It's going to take forever, and you're going to accidentally drop it 50 times and kill it. But if you're patient enough, you can probably find a way to get an enemy that can naturally break things near that breakable wall without having to get the light dash. It'll take a while,
Right.
but you'll get it there.
It seems like an awful lot of effort.
It is. But, I decided to do that because I saw a shiny that I technically could get and knew I could get in the back of my head and could not wait until the end. Even though it would be quicker to play through the game to the end and go get the light dash and come back, I often would take the challenge to go kick the monster way, way back all the way to where that breakable wall is. But yeah.
Just before the shinies.
Yeah, like there's an ability point thing right behind that thing. It's got a breakable wall. I can't break it with my tools right now, but there was a frog that was shooting exploded and spit earlier. If I grab him and throw him all the way down here after about 20 minutes, I'll probably be able to get it open. There's no guarantee it'll work. It does totally, by the way, every time it works when you think you can and you try it. It's just not something I think the developers intended for you to do.
Yep. It's creative use of game mechanics is what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, that just means Blizzard's going to ban it.
Exactly, right?
Probably. But yeah, the other thing Light Desk gets you is it's also a built-in super jump. So it as the last upgrade, you get a built-in super jump. But your grab and throw mechanic you get as the upgrade right before it works just fine as long as there's something to grab. This includes projectiles or enemies. You can grab anything and throw it, and you will go in the opposite direction of the projectile. So you get a projectile that you can grab and throw. If it's hidden off in like the southwestern part of the world that you'll never go to, there's no reason to go there for story at all. But not that there's much of a story in Ori and the Blind Forest at all. You're a fairy trying to get back to a tree to reactivate the elemental powers. It's completely skippable. It's only like maybe 2 paragraphs long if you put all the text together in the game.
That is a very short story.
Yeah, the game itself is only supposed to be about 8 hours long. But yeah, and they have a leveling system where you can put points into your stuff to upgrade like your double jump into a triple jump. You'll never technically need that, but it also allows you to sequence break, effectively, is what this is. And you get the triple jump early, and you can suddenly jump just a little bit higher and get up, past a vertical wall that was blocking you, that was jutting out with a hole in it just big enough for you to squeeze through with that triple jump. And you don't need to wait until you get the parachute or something that would normally push you up the wind current underneath it. So it's very interesting if you play the game. Like, once you get an upgrade that can solve a bunch of puzzles, and you go solve those and you see other puzzles, you're like, I could probably figure that out. That makes the game fun. If I came back with the light dash and all the upgrades at the end, got everything, it would not be very fun. The puzzles would be way too easy. But if you try to solve them the obtuse way, I wonder how many of them were intentional or not to be able to be solved that way, but they're really fun. and because there's no text, you can fairly easily listen to an audiobook. The music's your fairly standard, good symphony affair stuff in that game. But it's nothing, there was no standout track or anything. But yeah, the game was good. It was on the higher end of good. Shantae is also on the higher end of good, lower great for platformers. Although Shantae is all three of those are fairly easy. Because in Ori, you level up so fast, you can get the half damage taken talent like a third of the way through the game. So yeah, it's not that hard. Although you do have to be a little precise with some of the platforming, it's not that hard. The last game I'm going to talk about really surprised me. This hit me out of left field with how good it was. It's about as close as I've seen to the exploration platformer genre being made for veterans of the series done well. And that's Hollow Knight.
I saw you playing an awful lot of that.
Yeah, I expected
you said it was killing you.
Yeah, it was killing me in a good way, though. Because the game's actually challenging. Like, people are saying Dark Souls when they talk about this game because it's a dark and dreary environment and the combat's actually fairly challenging. It is not
saying Dark Souls because they say Dark Souls about everything now.
Yeah, if
it's challenging, they just say Dark Souls.
Here's the better perspective for this game. People need to stop using that word because it doesn't describe it at all.
Also, yes.
It is the equivalent difficulty of if you put something like Mega Man X on hard difficulty. That's what is a better and more apt comparison to Hollow Knight.
That sounds better.
Yes, that's more what it's like. It is more difficult than your standard exploration platformer and is combat focused, but it is not Dark Souls at all. It does not have any flow of combat. Just because it's set in a dark environment in most of the worlds, and because it is hard, does not make it Dark Souls.
Yes, stop it, people. Just stop.
It is a bad comparison and is going to turn people off from the game. But
yes.
But yes, the difficulty is cranked up quite a bit. Some of the platforming challenges they want you to do get rather ridiculous, especially near the end in the White Palace area.
Yeah, not Meat Boy ridiculous, I hope.
Ooh, White Palace might give it a run for its money. But White Palace is the big challenge to unlock the true ending of the game. But it is the only platforming challenge that's difficult. The tools here, we'll start with the tools in this game and why it's more challenging than other exploration platformers, stuff like that, what we called them. Usually, what's your first upgrade you get in these games? They normally start you with a single jump and no dash, right? You have basically nothing.
Mm-hmm.
In this game, they don't ever give you a double jump, ever. They don't ever give you flight. You don't have those tools in this game.
Get good scrap.
You don't have the get out of jail free cards. That like you're like, oh, I'll be able to get that when I get fly. No, you'll never get fly. There's going to be an upgrade that helps you get it, but it's not going to be fly or double jump. They do give you dash, but it's not used in the same way as you would think. It's used in precision platforming. The dash goes a set distance, and there'll be like a floor of spikes and a ceiling that's very narrow, and a platform you can rest on in the middle of it, followed by a repeating set of spikes and then a rest. And you will have to set your dash up so that you dash only onto the safe spots when you use the dash. So that's more how they use it. Or they'll use it to have you recover by being able to hit a wall and wall jump. But you cannot wall jump very effectively in most places due to level design. So the movement is limited. The closest thing you get to fly is if you're hanging on a wall, you'll eventually get an upgrade where you can form crystals under yourself. You can do it on the ground too to shoot way up, but you're going to kill yourself if you do that, so don't do that. Oh, no, you can't. You can't go straight up. Never mind. That's only one area. You can only go left or right no matter what with this thing. And it'll shoot you left or right as like a rocket, and you'll just whoosh into something. And if you're not careful, you'll hit spikes and die instantly. But it's the closest thing you get. You have to use this to solve a lot of puzzles where it's just like, they use it effectively as to get around walls of stuff and to open up shortcuts more than solve puzzles, but it is used a few times in puzzles. But yeah, the upgrades are really what make the game different from the other types of games in this genre because they don't give you the tools you expect. You don't get a parachute. You don't get double jump. You don't get whatever I said. You don't get flight. The get out of jail free cards are not there. The easy ones you expect to get are not there. So you have to learn to work with the tools the game gives you. And that makes it really fun to figure out all these new types of puzzles in this absolutely giant game for the genre. We're talking 25 hours to complete the whole dang game to 100% it. That's huge for this type of game. We haven't seen one that big since like Symphony of the Night.
Yeah.
And even that I don't think was more than 20. If you knew what you were doing. If you know what you're doing and you're a veteran in the genre, it's going to take you 25 hours to 100% this game. That's how long it took me, anyway. And you get fairly good at the combat. The combat is way, way harder than any other game in this genre. It doesn't hold your hand at all. You've got to you can't run into enemies and just start whacking on them and tank every hit. I mean, you can. There are pins. You remember Super Mario RPG, or Paper Mario, rather, where you had the pins you stuck on, and that gave you your abilities and modified.
Yes.
You only had a certain number of slots for pins. They do that in this. You get pins, and they modify your abilities. So you get you do more damage when you're at low health, and you can dash a little bit further, or money attracts to you, or the most important one, you get a compass that shows where you are on the map. So one slot of your stuff is always going to have that compass stuck in it, because you will get lost if you don't, because the map is absolutely fracking huge. And you're going to be running back and forth a lot, opening new areas. But the sheer size of the map is actually a good thing here, because every area is very well interconnected with a lot of fast travel points. So it's not as bad as it sounds. But
the thing is that it just sort of strikes me as odd to hear you say that, since you spent like the last 2 weeks whinging about how huge the maps were in Ukulele.
But there's like puzzles and stuff to do, and there's new collectibles you can get every time you go back to an area. You're not running through an area or wondering if you've completed it. You know when you're done in Hollow Knight. You know when you've got the pin or whatever. So you don't ever wonder, is there still something over there? There might be. If you see an area of the map that you haven't explored, yeah, it's probably there. But they don't stick stuff in obtuse corners behind a temple that you had no reason to go behind and stick the last quill back there with no map indication to get to it. See, that's another thing Ukulele could have done. If it had a proper map, it would have been better. That is segueing that back to Hollow Knight, though. They don't actually give you a map for every zone. It's not your traditional Metroidvania where a new room appears in every single time you walk into a new area. It's not like that at all. You have to find the cartographer who's sitting in the area you're exploring and talk to him and pay him to get a map. And then you get an incomplete map. And then if you have the quill equipped, you can write down hidden areas as you explore them. This game is very big on making you love a map and understand how important that map actually is in these kind of games. But it offers some interesting challenges when you're not sure where to go. Because you see some puzzles that look pretty hard one way and other ones that look fairly challenging in a different way, and wonder if you have the tools to get by it, and you just kind of have to experiment. So this is the other way the game gets to bite you. I did not actually die that much in this game, despite me saying it's pretty hard, and most of that is due to just how cautious you'll start playing because you don't have that map right away. I started dying more in the same places I'd already been through after I already got the dang map, because I was not being careful. As long as you're careful, you'll be okay. But the second you stop being careful, there's going to be a spike wall or something that'll insta-jib you. So there's a death penalty in this game. The only way you progress is by spending money. That's it. It's the only way to buy pins. That's the only way to buy upgrades. The only way to upgrade the map you have. The only way to upgrade your nail, plus collectible items. But yeah, you'll find those and they'll stay in your inventory, and they're fairly rare, so they don't really count. So your nail is your sword. But you need money to do everything in this game. And near the end of the game, you need quite a lot of money. Like 4,000, I think, is the most expensive thing in the game. I think that's the last upgrade for the sword. And you lose all of your money when you die. That's the only death penalty. If you lose, your health is measured in little mass at the top of your screen. You start with 5 and can build up to 10 by the end of the game. So they're not generous with health at all. Some things can even hit for 2 points of damage. The last boss, everything hits for 2 points. But if you hit a spike, or some types of terrain, you will get flipped back to the last safe platform you could stand on and only lose 1 mask. You never outright die. But if you do ever outright die, like you lose all the masks, you lose all your money, and you get ported back to the last bench you rested at. There's little benches around the world, and these are the only places you can adjust your build with your pins and the effects you have. So, and when you rest at a bench, your health's restored. So, if you die, you lose all your money and you go back. And if you had like 13,000 saved up, too bad. There is a way to get it back, but it's not likely to happen because of the nature of the game, unless you died because you were being dumb in an area you'd already explored. Usually you'll die in the middle of a hard puzzle, and you'll have your shade come back, and you'll have to fight your shade and kill it to get all your money back. And they're not that hard. It takes like 4 hits to kill them, but they're usually in the smack middle of a room full just completely covered in spikes. where you died because you were trying to solve the puzzle. So good luck. When you can fish it out, you get your money back. But losing a life and having it floating there and knowing you can't get to it when it's got like 4 hours worth of money on it is not fun. So be really careful with your health in this game. And you will find a bank, in air quotes, in the game. Don't put anything in that bank. Well, actually, max out the bank, but don't freak out when the bank abandons you and it turns out the bank post was made of cardboard and you can't actually withdraw any of that money. So when you store money in that bank, the lady that runs it just gets up and takes your money. If you put over a certain amount in, I think it's like over 2,500 when I looked it up later. And much later in the game, you can find her if you have a certain key, and you'll open it to a hot spring, and you'll see her sitting there resting, and you can go beat the crap out of her until she gives you all the money she took back. So you can get it back. It is
right.
That's hardly sporting.
That is really impolite. Yes.
Yes, the bank is not a traditional bank. Don't do that.
That's more like a pinata than a bank.
Yeah, well, at the end it is. You just bounce her on. You can bounce her on the top of your sword and play volleyball with her, bouncing her off walls and stuff. It's fun. It's the easiest way to get your money back too. So she does kind of become like a pinata. But yeah, but also don't freak out because I had like 15,000 extra money in my pocket. If you're completing this game, you'll have enough money, unless you're dying like all the time. And I did figure out later you'll find rancid eggs, and I didn't know what they were for. But you can unlock near the starting town a door if you get a key for it. And there'll be a little wizard bug inside of it, and he will summon the shade wherever it is to that location for you to kill it, but it requires a fairly hard-to-find resource called a rancid egg. So you gotta go find the eggs if you want to summon your shade to him, so you don't always have that many, especially early in the game when you're going to be dying the most. So, yeah. But most important thing to upgrade is your map. Get everything to do with the map, all the time. If there's anything at all in the map shop, buy that before you buy anything else. You need it. So, yeah. And the combat of the game is fairly challenging, as I said before. It's quite a step up from other games. You're not so much waiting around as taking advantage of holes in enemies' attacks to strike them, because the enemies don't stop attacking, but each attack has a space in it where you can get them somewhere. But learning where those are is where most of the challenging combat comes, and how many hits you can get in and what you can do. And, you don't have combos in this game. You have little sword swipe. You can swipe up, you can swipe down if you're in the air, and you can swipe left and right. That's about it. That's really all the tools you're working with. You have magic, but using magic uses health, and you don't normally want to do that, because that same magic is taken away from the ability they give you at the start of the game to get your health back. You have this little bobble next to your mask that fills up with white liquid, and you can drain that to get health back by channeling it. And you can do this whenever, even in combat. This is the big thing with the combat and difficulty of this game, is keeping your health up at all times and keeping that bobble as full as possible so you can heal when you need it. But if you choose to use magic for combat, you're pulling from that bottle. So I don't really ever recommend it in combat. It's just going to get you killed. So, especially if you're trying to one-shot a boss. In most bosses, until you start getting the really ridiculous upgrades and you're backtracking to finish collecting everything, are fairly challenging. You're not going to kill them in one shot. But they do get much easier. It's very much so recognize the pattern and find the holes and whack on them combat. But you can't just sit there and tank their hits. You're not going to live like that. You're going to die. But I really like the game a lot. It really surprised me. I was actually really happy it was kind of kicking my butt. So you don't see that type of game ever come out and be like, oh, I'm actually really hard and going to kick your butt. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yep.
So, yeah. But it was fair. Like, a lot of the Dark Souls fans like to say so much it's hard but fair. I don't agree with that. I think Dark Souls is a lot of garbage you have to wait through and then you get to hit the opponent. Hollow Knight is very much so hard but fair. You always need to be on the offense, and you just need to learn what the heck to do. There's no waiting game. There's not even a whole lot of learning the levels. If you start picking up on how the game flows, you'll get better at the game. So yeah, right. I recommend Hollow Knight a lot. Go play that video game. It really surprised me. And also, it was a Kickstarter game, so we have one more good Kickstarter on the list.
Yay!
Another good one.
Can we actually use more than one hand to count them yet?
Half Genie Hero. Let's see. We had Hollow Knight, and then we had. Help me out, guys.
There's a lot of that. A lot of them which I will put as good, but not great. And unfortunately, I'm not going to count those because, like I said, they're not great. They're just in a lot of cases.
I'm going for good plus. Shantae Half Genie Hero was good plus compared to Hollow Knight. It would be great if I hadn't played Hollow Knight this week. So it gets a great token.
That's fair.
But yeah, Hollow Knight just completely overshadowed everything else this week.
Just that good.
yeah, just way better than all the other games in the genre. It's not even close for a veteran, especially.
All right.
So, yeah, I think we're going to go to a break. We're going to read an email. So the segue is not going to quite work because I forgot about the email, but that's okay. We'll be right back.
You ruined it all.
Oh, okay. Here's some music, folks.
Versus the World production would like to thank JitBit Software for the use of RSS Feed Creator. The show has its RSS feed created and maintained by RSS Feed Creator. With its easy-to-understand interface and ability to upload all with a simple click, you can't make it any easier. Try out all their awesome software at www.jitbit.com or see the link on our front page at vtwproductions.com.
And we're back, and I'm glad I realized the mic was muted.
Yes, that would have been embarrassing.
I was telling you we could go as soon as I finished reading Sarthas' email, and then like 20 seconds later, you're like, okay, I guess we're going.
Yeah, you kind of went quiet there.
We're back. So, as I said before, Sarthas sent us an email, so I read like the past 5 or 6 emails we've got. Somebody else take this one.
Oh man, I'm going to miss this boss if I do that. Oh, anyway, that's going to be up for 5 hours. I'll read this. Dear No Excuses crew, there was an RPG Maker sale, and I decided to check out what's up for grabs. Apparently, 95% was garbage, but I did manage to walk away with RFL. It is a fairly standard JRPG story of our intrepid 16-year-old heroine accidentally picking up a quest to save the world of Ara from felling, literally.
Yes. So I'm not sure how that would work.
While the combat is pretty bland, level the mana pool, the music is good, and the graphics are actually pretty amazing. I have also whaled away with Crosscode on my wish list. This one is more of a 16-bit action RPG with a stuck-in-a-VR MMO theme. Neat pixel art, fluid combat, and a giant enemy crab awaits once it actually gets out of early access. Speaking of things that are 95% garbage, pretty much everything on the internet. This time I'd like to mention Flash games. Remember Flash games? Like the really rare good ones? Epic Battle Fantasy, Marduk, Monsters Den, Gemcraft, Creeper World. I have been waiting for 8 years for the final part of the Sony trilogy, only to have Kryn do his usual thing, and instead of finishing the series, he rebooted it and condensed the story in one game. While the music is still awesome, done by David Orr, and the backgrounds look pretty neat, there are no animations in combat, only some words are voice acted, and the equipment doesn't show on the characters. What the hell, 8 years for this? I am disappointed. There was also some dooming done. I have come across a map set by the name No End in Sight. At first it seemed like a bog-standard Doom 1 romp with old-school abstract level design. Then I looked at the kill count and secrets. Apparently most of the level was hidden behind a series of secrets. The episode 3 crowner had over 780 monsters and 20 secrets. By the time I found the exit, I only explored a third of the level. So if you like some exploration-themed maps, give NEIS a shot. Sarthas.
Thank you for that, Sarthas. Let's go down the list. So, RPG Maker.
I don't
I played
play
this
those
back in high school in its first iteration before you could install games on it. And it was free.
Yep. And as he says, it's all 95% garbage.
Yeah.
There is a lot. If you give everyone the tools to make something, a lot of them are going to try and you end up with a whole bunch of hello worlds. But you get a lot of crap as well. That said, if you're willing to do some digging and you research, there is some real gems on there.
Yeah, but unfortunately, because Steam decided to experiment with user curation.
Yes, go on. Sorry, that just needed a groan.
I mean, the argument, like, you can quite feasibly make the argument that even the good ones would never have gotten a look in without that system, without the green light system. But
yep.
The fact is that you still can't even find them because they're surrounded by trash.
And even then, the things that are really bad that really want to be stuck on the market will make their way through Greenlight.
Yeah, sooner or later, they'll find enough friends to go and bot vote for them.
Looking at you, DNA Twister.
Ugh. Man, I'm actually sort of sad that I can't harass you to get that done anymore.
Yeah,
you can find another terrible game.
I'm not doing that ever again. I'm not saying something that I'm not making rhetorical statements on the show anymore. It's not happening.
Nope. You've learned your lesson of it, I see.
It wasn't even a bet, it was a rhetorical statement.
But I mean, look at Steam's new release over the last few weeks. There's a few good games, a couple of games coming out of early access, and then there's visual novel, crap visual novel, exceedingly crap visual novel.
They're all fan service exercises, that's the thing.
Yeah. RPG Maker RPG game.
The ones we talk about are the ones that have been curated in a list for a long time now. People
Yeah.
talk about the ones that are not those most of the time. There's a big asterisk on that. It does have its community somehow, but yeah, you got to be careful with those. Basically, ask me or go find it or go find a community that's curated them before you go poke at VNs, or you'll get burned.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
There's,
you get burned. You get burned if you're looking for something other than that. Like if all you're looking for is cheesecake, probably there's a bunch of them that would do the job.
Oh yeah, that's not hard to find. If you're after a solid, cohesive story, though, yeah, good luck.
Yeah, you're gonna need some help or a lot of reading to get that done. And it took a lot of it is a lot of reading and effort to find the good ones.
Yeah.
But when you find the good ones, they're really good.
So it doesn't seem to actually be on Steam anymore, but there was actually, of all things, a porno tycoon game made it to the front page.
I heard about that.
Yes, it is
Somebody
still
was
on
talking
Steam.
about it.
It's just been removed from the front page.
Well, it's not really a good look, you know.
No, it looks awful. It looks just absolutely awful.
Well, yes, that's what I would expect.
On the
Well,
other
that-
hand, though, you're not there for actual gameplay. You're there to look at bums. That's what you're there for.
I guess. I guess I
Static
don't know.
cartoon bums.
I don't know if there are actually static cartoon bums in there, and it wouldn't surprise me if there weren't.
There are, according to this screenshot, that's a cartoon bum right there. So
not touching it.
why?
Well, because people like that sort of thing. Like sex sells, man. I mean, you can basically count on people to click them at the very least. On the Steam
What
store.
the hell is this?
Yeah, either out of morbid curiosity or out of sort of like, submerged lechery.
Yeah. Could we?
I mean,
could we
it's something like if every mail that goes through in there, let's say 90% of mails that go through the Steam front page, click anything that sort of triggers that circuit in the back of our animal brains, then some percentage of those people don't care about spending a few dollars on a piece of trash. So it's just a good way to make money.
Would you spend $20 on cartoon boobs?
It really depends on the sort of person. Like considering how cheaply a lot of these things are made, how many people do you actually need to do it?
Yeah, exactly.
Not that many.
Not many at all.
There are plenty of people that have that taste for things.
Yeah.
Although we would not buy it. The population is not small that would.
Let's move on, shall we?
And we can't understand them either because it's completely different wiring and experiences that make people go, oh, that's what I want to buy. It's
Oh
not-
no,
Yeah.
I can totally understand it. I wouldn't do it myself because I don't have that sort of money and I don't have that sort of impulse to play those games. Like I have too much other stuff to do, and I don't consider it particularly moral to indulge in that sort of thing. But
I just think it's icky.
I do
Yeah.
totally grasp it on sort of the animal level, because the animal level doesn't actually make values judgments very accurately.
I suppose
Yeah.
so. You're the biologist, so
Well, this is a psychology thing. This isn't a biology thing. Like it's only partially biology, but that impulse is extremely strong. In
Yeah.
the vast majority, like the first sort of 3 standard deviations of males, the impulse is not negligible. How many people succumb to it is a different category. But most people can sort of understand that little zing of attention of that sort of the lizard hindbrain perking up when they've seen something which represents femininity.
Anyway, we've gotten way off track here.
Well,
Yeah.
to be fair, our tracks are usually pretty windy.
This is true. This is very true. So let's
we are
try
not
and
the
get
most
back.
efficient train in the station.
Yeah. So trying to
let's
get
see.
back in line here. Flash games. Now that I think of it, is Newgrounds still a thing? Is it still around?
I think it still exists, but I'm not really
Let's-
sure.
To the internet.
Weren't a good
Uh,
portion of those porn games as well?
Also, yes.
I think it has a tab for
You-
it.
and you said
somewhere.
I was off topic.
It transitions nicely. Yeah, here it is. Newgrounds. It's still up. And it still looks like it's completely mapped up.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Newgrounds.
That's Newgrounds.
I was never into Flash games, so I can't really talk too much about it. The most I played was like Kitty Cannon and the early Flash games when they were coming out before I gave
Yeah.
up on them. Because we figured out how to put games on our school PCs pretty fast, so we never had to waste time in the computer lab with them.
I feel like I played Flash games once upon a time, but I don't have any distinct memories of playing any.
There's a few that have been revamped and overhauled and then sold as a self-contained product, Binding of Isaac being, one of the big ones. But just the little Flash toys and little Flash games, they're still there. There's a whole lot of them still right here on Newgrounds.
I mean, it's a good starting place for design. Seeing the product actually appear and being able to change it by testing it easily, it's a very good tool for that. But I don't see much of a reason for people to play them like they used to. Most people can, actually just put a game on a flash drive now if they want to play it.
Well, it used to be a really good bed to learn how to make a game. You could sit down and actually make a game in Flash and put it up and get feedback on it, or being in the internet, flames. A lot of people are actually doing that on the mobile markets now instead.
I mean, there's also a lot of things that you can do with Flash that are there are things that are not as easily accomplished through another medium. I mean, if you look at, say, without Flash, something like the Homestar Runner and Strong Bad stuff wouldn't exist.
Right.
Because those things allowed you to do animation really, really easily compared to conventional styles of animation. And it's probably still true that that's a relatively effective way of doing it.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, they taught, in my computer classes, because I took extra ones, even in middle school, they taught us the first version of Flash. And we had to make short little animations in Flash. And they would let you draw on the screen, and then you could go to the next frame, and you can copy what you had, or you can draw something new. And you could play with objects, and it was very simple and very intuitive. Not a whole lot of tools at all, but you could make it happen. And that's how we got Strong Bad and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was good, especially for the time, but I don't see I guess you could still use it for people to get them started.
It's still a good place to start, I think, and to learn.
If you're still learning terminology and the process at all, and if you're still at that level, it's probably pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, I haven't touched Flash games in forever. I have no idea what the heck he's talking about.
Nor do I. I don't recognize any of that stuff.
Yeah, Creeper World's one I know that's on Steam now. I've played a bit of that. It's about covering a landscape in goo. Monsters Den rings a bell, but I can't really remember it. Epic Battle of Fantasy is a long-running series that's also on Steam now. I think they're up to number 5. And they're
Isn't their
silly.
numbering system a bit wonky, though?
Yes, it is. Yes. So it's an extremely silly series.
That's the one that my most recent achievement on Epic Battle Fantasy 4 is on. My most recent achievement on it is Pervert. Because I was, after having played it for a few minutes, I realized that what sort of game it was, and was convinced that if I just arbitrarily clicked on a character's boobs for long enough, something would happen. So I decided to do that. Yes, in fact, something did happen. I got an achievement calling me a pervert.
The game tells you off for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it just seems to me like the sort of game where something like that might happen.
Yep.
And so I decided
Don't you feel proud?
Yeah. But the fact is that now I know that nobody will ever know that I did it 110% in the spirit of curiosity and not at all in the spirit of lechery, and nobody will ever believe me.
Nope. You're stuck with that. That is on your profile forever. Actually, I think it might be on mine as well.
Yep.
That is the whole reason for doing stuff like downloading the Skyrim ridiculous costume packs on people's computers when they're not looking.
Yeah.
So they get stuck on the recent download history for mods and stuff.
This is like some sort of dominatrix harness or something.
Yeah, you put the most fetishistic gear you can find in the store on their computer when they're not looking. You do that at the same time you do the big trees mod and stuff. I used to do that with my friends all the time. So yeah, so all of us have really weird stuff sitting somewhere in our download history, probably, if I took the time to look through it.
That just seems like you're collaborating to have a likely story.
I've been saying they thought this with the giant trees for years now, dude. I've talked about this nonstop.
Yep, and that would be really convenient if you're trying to create a smoke screen of false flagging stories.
I don't care what people believe.
There's a whole industry for that.
Y'all can believe what the heck you want. It's just really fun to do. So that's the whole point anyway. It's just supposed to make people go, did he really?
I don't have the pervert achievement, but I do have Panty Thief. So I don't think I'm a whole lot better there.
Yeah.
That's on Epic Battle Fantasy 4, and I think that might actually be the second game in the series or something like that. It's silly. It's extremely silly.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I didn't play very much of it. I've always meant to get back to it. It's not the most gripping story, though.
No, it's just cute and wacky, and that's about it. Nothing wrong with that, but yeah. All right. Anything to say about Doom? I know. Well, it's Thursday's email. We got to have Doom.
Yeah, I've got to admit that I can't even find regular secrets in Doom. Like,
No.
I've never been any good at it. Their levels are just too bizarre, especially when as the levels tend more and more in the direction of making everything out of meat. It gradually gets to the point where I just don't comprehend anything. Like, I can't explore that space. Even the really mainstream, well-known levels, I can't find the secrets in because I just don't understand how the developers think, how the level designers think. I just can't do it. I've never been any good at it. Goodness knows I've tried, but I can't do it.
Yep. Like sometimes some of them are really easy. Like you'd be able to walk down a hall and there's a grey patch of wall which is slightly darker than really should be, and hey, there you go. There's a secret. Others,
I don't think
there's absolutely no hint.
I don't think that I could find all of the secrets in E1M1. Like, I don't have the brain required to see those things. It's sort of like how you need to have a brain wired up in a certain way in order to play a Metroid game.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be able to see what a thing could be as opposed to what it is now.
Yep.
But I don't have that type of brain, and Doom has a similar sort of thing. You need to see what sort of places are conspicuous for this is integrated into a secret of some kind.
Yeah, like you learn to think that way after you're playing them for a while, or you can just run around and whack every wall with your chainsaw. Up to you. But yeah, this one, no end in sight. 780 monsters, 20 secrets. That is enormous.
How much ammo is in it?
That is a good question, but that is absolutely bonkers. And I doubt you'd be able to find everything out as you play through. And even in maybe your third run through it, you'll still be finding new stuff. So good luck with that, Serathus. I hope you actually do manage to find everything. But sounds like you'll be at it for a while. Right. Anything else about the email?
Oh, thanks for writing, Serathus. Sorry, I totally told you we'd be arrived this week, and that's probably why you wrote the email. But we're not.
That's where we've gone wrong. You promised, and that's just ruined everything.
I didn't promise. I said, but...
Close enough. Fate is a fickle bastard.
Yeah, me and her don't get along very well.
Yeah.
Actually, me and her have an on and off relationship. Sometimes she's really nice. Sometimes she absolutely hates me.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk some news, shall we?
Okie doke. Y'all found us the news this week, too.
We did. There's a whole bunch of Secret World Legends stuff. You want to start there?
Sure. Okay, so after the fact that I mentioned Secret World Legends a number of times over the past few weeks, I thought that I'd do a bit more investigation, and I watched some interviews and stuff done by Massively. Yep. Well, they're called Massively OP now. They were called Massively when they were under the original Joystick brand.
Yeah, I got to say, some of those interviews were rather awkward to watch.
Well, but the one which was done by, I can't remember, was it Elliot? One of them was like, this is openly hostile. He's really reining it in, and I understand that because he's like a long time player. But yeah, it's just a little bit cringy to watch, just a little bit.
It is. But the decisions they've put behind Legends have been divisive, to say it nicely. I can see where they're coming from for a lot of them, though. I don't necessarily agree with all of them, but there you go.
Yeah.
So,
well, anyway, basically, in order to I'll summarize generally speaking what they're doing and why they're doing it. So, the Secret World came out, some time ago now, probably about 5 years. Does that sound right?
Roundabout.
About 5 years ago. And as we mentioned in a recent show, there was a whole debacle involving insider trading surrounding its launch, and the whole pump and dump approach that the people in charge of Funcom at the time took, and so that created a debacle in and of itself. So it was, therefore, that shows that it was evident pretty far into their tenure that the game was not going to be what they had hoped. But they released it anyway, and it was a mess, and it got better over time. And the development team is quite small, but they poured the vast bulk of their efforts into primarily into designing story content. Like they were making their money out of things like costumes, and AP boosters was the major revenue stream on an ongoing basis, which is basically like buying XP, because the game had a colossal quantity of skills, and you had to grind AP to learn them, and you could buy boosters which would just give you some, which was to speed the process up. So they got to the point where not all that long ago, maybe a year or two ago, they got to the point where they were just breaking even, and then they got to the point where they would release new content and they would make a loss. They would take a loss on it, because basically their favorite type of content to design and everybody's favorite type of content to play was story content, but you can only buy that one time, and that's what people really wanted. So they didn't have a good way of maintaining the sort of the infrastructure of the game as it was, and providing the content that people wanted. So they decided, they started tossing the idea around sort of beginning of last year, and then eventually decided to do it. They would just put the extant version of the game in maintenance mode. For those that don't know, a game MMO going into maintenance mode means that it's not actively overseen or developed by human beings anymore, but that it's run by scripts, and then basically there's a tech support guy who will make sure that it keeps ticking over. Other than that, there's
more
not
than
really
one
much,
if you're lucky.
Yeah, other than that, there's not really much intervention left from the developers. So what they decided that they would grind it right back and change the genre, functionally speaking, to being a multiplayer RPG of sorts rather than an MMO. So that basically they're hard capping the number of players that can participate in content at a really, really low level, and rebuilding the entire game around the core story. And they're also gutting the engine completely and turning it into a action RPG of sorts. So it's got reticule combat, much like Terra and the likes. And the game is basically being redesigned on while all of the core story is being kept, the game and the quests and so on are basically being redesigned in a sufficiently fundamental way that there is no meaningful way to port across any old characters or anything like that, because there's no way to make those two databases match up. And as far as previous expenditure goes, I expect that they will probably handle transferring things that you have bought for micropayments over on a bit by bit basis as they have time to do so. But so they're on a really short development cycle. So
we've hit the first and probably biggest sticking point with their audience is the lack of character transfers.
Yeah, and I think that I sort of feel bad for them, because it seems to me that this is the obvious option that they have to take. There's no other option for them. They can't do something else. So
I know. I see where they're coming from, and honestly, it's not something I completely am against. Like, I'm going to be disappointed that I lose my character progress. Of course, everyone else is as well. But it's effectively a new game. And
for us returning players, I think it's actually a little bit better. We won't.
For returning players, I think it's even better. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the people that are objecting are obviously going to be people who are like they've been playing for 5 years straight and have spent tons and tons of time grinding everything up. And I do feel bad for them. I do.
I do as well.
The reality is that their alternative is that the game as a whole will cease to exist.
Yeah.
You gotta remember, when you're grinding. Well, actually, this isn't true because of the way Secret World works. Never mind. I forget that you can basically hit level cap. You can only grind to a certain point for a while, and then the goalpost gets moved away anyway. I'm like, wait a minute, no, this is Secret World. That doesn't work.
No. So once you max out the skill wheel, that's it. You're done.
Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, they have a reason to be a little upset.
You get your rather cool costume and be sent on your way.
Yeah, well, at any rate, I very much sympathise with both sides on this one, but I think that the people who are complaining about it need to understand that complaining about that is like complaining about the weather. It's just something that happens.
Yeah,
And
it's something that's got to happen.
Yeah, and in this situation, quite literally, the alternative is to just not develop the game anymore, to abandon it. And this is the closest, if they're at all interested in the story, well, this is the closest they're going to get. And, you know, it's sad and all that, but I'm not that sad. I mean, I started out playing World of Warcraft in that mindset that I had one character and I only played one character. In fact, a lot of people started vanilla like that because making alts was onerous.
Boring.
Yeah.
Still easier now to make one in vanilla.
But
Well, yeah.
But yeah, it's while that is still the case that you know you've got to do some work to build alts. It's nothing like it used to be at all. And like you can do that first 60 levels in an afternoon if you're really dedicated. But yeah, in the case of Secret World, I really do understand where both sides are coming from. You can't make that database match up, especially considering they are rewriting certain parts of the story in the sense that they feel certain things were unclear and they didn't communicate well the right information that they wanted to, and so on and so forth. So the quest progressions are wonky. There's a lot of reasons why it's a good idea for them to revamp this, and I think they will do this. The game will do well for it, and the renewed focus on the story is the most important thing. That was always what the Secret World was good at, was story.
The other way to approach it, of course, is a mechanical point of view where they're taking and they're just ripping out combat as it exists now and replacing it with something entirely new. So starting again with a new system is not a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a sort of sense that people are, oh, well, we're losing all our grind. Yeah, but all your grind is for a system that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, like, it's still there. You can go back and play classic Secret World. Yeah,
yeah. A lot of people's objection to that, of course, is the fact that that's not going to see any further development. Like the story will not progress on that server. But
I know that sounds a bit asympathetic, but
yeah, I'm a bit on it as well, to be honest. But that's the fundamental change is basically going to obviate that whole question, because what they really want to do is they want to expand the audience beyond the MMO sphere, because the thing with MMO players is that they're hyper efficient, generally speaking, and they are looking to cut corners and avoid spending money as much as possible. So what they want to do is basically turn this into a conventional RPG with an audience drawn, at least in part, from the conventional RPG crowd, and having done so, finance it as an RPG, as opposed to having to deal with the sorts of server overheads that you get when you are trying to pile a bajillion people into one zone. So it's going to be structured with Agatha, the tree, the Great World Tree, being the sort of the central hub area, the way you used to have major central hub areas in Guild Wars. Guild Wars 1.
So you go there and that's where you see players and bouncing around and wearing stupid costumes and things like that.
Yeah, and like in Guild Wars, you shack up with the people that you want to be spending time with there, and then you cut your group of misfits out into the world and then have your adventure. They want to really play up the atmosphere and play down the gamey parts of the thing.
Yeah, so the thing that kind of annoyed me in a minor way with Secret World as it was is the atmosphere of the game is very dark, very lonely, very oppressive for the most part. But that's kind of broken when you've got 24 characters running around in bright, colourful costumes.
Yeah, I think that the real, like, aside from Agatha's always a circus. But aside from that, I think that the one that always sticks in my mind is the zombie-infested graveyard behind the church in the first town.
Yes.
Because it's a graveyard full of zombies, it's supposed to be sort of a creepy place, but because it's at the start, there's like, a gajillion people grinding zombies in that area. There's just corpses everywhere. The zombies are just getting cut down because there's so many people trying to kill them.
So zombie apocalypse, of course, are just through pure numbers.
Yeah, but I mean, and the thing is that Secret World had so much more potential than that. Like, Virgula Divina is the scariest MMO quest that I've done in any MMO ever, by far. Like that scared the pants off of me. Like I'm easy to scare though. I the average jump scare will panic me, but that quest was still creepy as heck.
Yeah, the park, genuinely creepy quest line.
The thing particularly with the reason why I use Vigila Divina is because that was something that you had to do by yourself. You never met anybody else while doing that. You are just sort of creeping around this sort of abandoned laboratory facility where they were experimenting on children, and you jump at every noise. And
there was also actually, while I'm thinking of it, the one of the progression quests which you literally could not take another player into, where you meet a contact in the bottom of a dark car park.
I hate that quest. I did that a couple of times because it's so near the beginning that when you start a new character, you tend to do it again. Every time, like, I crawl through that place at such a slow pace because I'm terrified.
Because you make one wrong move and something's going to jump out of the darkness going, would you, and eat your face.
Particularly in the first time I did it, before they nerfed the time to kill. The one of the biggest weaknesses of Secret World is that the time to kill made Vanilla WoW look fast.
Yeah.
It took ever to kill mobs, and you took a huge amount of damage in the process as a result. And in that garage, if you blundering around the darkness just happened to accidentally pull 2 mobs, you were dead, but you couldn't see where any of them were. And so
the whole place is so dark and creepy.
And you're just prowling around there, absolutely mortally afraid that something's going to leap out and eat you. And so there's a lot of these things which are real strengths. And there's also another one, like I think it's the first major expansion episode they did. I can't remember what it's called.
I can't remember what it's called either.
But
It's not fighting on top of a train at the behest of a pimp mummy.
That was the second one. No, the first one was about, I think he was like a reporter or something, and he was investigating things, and it ends up getting really surreal towards the end.
Yes.
But they've just done such good atmospheric content in the past. So what they're looking for is to capitalize on that part that is their strength, and really, really work that angle. And I think that will be good. I don't know quite how well it will work. I think that having action combat might actually make it scarier because there's something very mechanistic about targeting and hotkeying.
Yeah, it breaks immersion is the easiest way to put it.
But you're sort of more responsible for the actions that you take in an action combat system.
Yes.
And so when you're sort of blundering around desperately trying to get your crosshair onto something that is flailing at you, that's probably going to make it a little bit more panicky. But yeah, I think that's a really good move from that point of view for them to capitalize on the things that they're good at rather than the things that they're not, because their mechanics have always been janky at best.
Yeah.
And they said that they're addressing the time to kill thing a little bit so that it's a little bit less, 1 1 1 1 1 1 2 1 1 1 1 1 1 2 type of thing.
Yeah.
They're setting it up they're setting it up so that there are less classes that have to build from nothing in order to start their fighting, because that was always the problem, really. That was the core problem behind the time to kill, is that so many specs started with no resources, so you couldn't front load damage, and you spent a huge amount of time just poking away with your builder before you could even hit reasonably hard. But they're basically, it sounds like they're rebuilding it for playability, which was always a problem in the past. But I'm hoping that this goes well for them, and it's going to be a free-to-play game, and the story content is also going to be free-to-play.
Yes.
I presume that they're going to use things like cosmetics and character slots and XP boosters or whatever as their money-making mechanism, but they haven't been especially transparent on that yet. But they are emphasizing the fact that all of the fundamental parts of the game will be free-to-play. And I think, and from my point of view, that's actually a good thing, because I have various friends who I could not, there's no way I could con them into playing an MMO with me, but this would be a much, much easier sell.
Well, yeah, first and foremost, it's free. But just having a small area that's tailored specifically for the party rather than trying to cater for 30, 40 odd people who might be spread out across the zone. It'll make for a much more engaging experience, I think.
Yeah, I can't get these people to play MMOs. Like they don't want a bar of that. But to get them to play a co-op RPG would be effortless by comparison.
Yes, I really hope actually there's a bunch of content in the Secret World that was never. It was there from the beginning, but they've never really done anything with it, like Agartha to a degree, Seoul particularly. Like that was a capital city and the hub of one of the factions, and it was empty. Absolutely nothing there.
I mean, you do a few little things there now and again, but it wasn't a patch on London really.
No, London was big city adventure and all sorts of things to discover and shops and everything.
I actually didn't dislike Seoul that much because the area that they choose is sort of a suburban area. So
yes.
It makes sense that it's sort of a little bit quaint and quiet. The one that really boggled my mind was New York.
It's kind of a alley type thing and a crappy park.
Yeah, but the fact is it's still New York. There are supposed to be people around, but there are hardly any. It's a shadow of what it should have been.
Yeah, you got the seedy underworld market, which is actually kind of cool, but everything else outside of that is just nah.
But yeah, so there's a lot of room for them to make improvements. I don't know precisely what they'll make improvements on. The thing that's got everybody sort of raising their eyebrows, though, is that they're hoping to have this out really, really soon. Like, I can't remember what they said, June or July or something. That they're expecting to have this done. They're doing a sort of a series of iterative betas at the moment, which have got a bunch of people involved in them. The current beta has everything up to City of the Sun God implemented. The next one is going to have the first couple Transylvanian zones, and then after that they'll put in the last bit. And they aren't planning to launch with Tokyo. I haven't played any of Tokyo actually. I wasn't playing when that came out. But
likewise,
I don't know what that implies about the expansions that they're going to accompany it with. Whether the ones like whether the Indiana Jones one will be in there, whether the James Bond one will be in there. I don't know which ones are going to be in there.
I really hope so.
Yeah, lots of people love Saeed.
Everyone loves Saeed, but I really like having those silly quests in there. It just sets off the tone nicely and breaks up the dark, depressing oogity boogity-ness.
Yeah, I mean they have really good dark, depressing oogity boogity-ness in places as well. I think that the thing that they need to get right from a mechanistic perspective is that I think that they have a good reason now to balance the combat just right, because it's not supposed to be a long form MMO grindfest anymore. So it's important that you get the feel of the combat right, so that people don't get impatient with it.
Yes.
It's like you don't want people to be mowing down monsters, but you also don't want a situation where people are having too much difficulty killing them. Like they'll have to handle things like the rate of repops, because if you go into Kingsmouth in live, repops happen constantly. You can't walk down the street without 15 billion zombies following you, and then you have to mow them all down. And it's like clearing out roaches. Yeah.
Incidentally, that is another thing that really breaks the atmosphere, is if you're trying to do a quest in Kingsmouth and then somebody runs past with a herd of zombies after them.
And the thing is that somebody running past with a herd of zombies after them, like there's room for that in a world, but the fact is that they're sort of jogging down the street like it ain't no thing. Like, I don't care. There's a whole mob of zombies after me, but I'm not really that concerned. I'm just moseying on down the street anyway.
Well, if you're not paying attention, then those zombies are going to turn and eat your face.
Yeah. So my concern is that I think that they might have bitten off more than they can chew, because I can think of a lot of things that I would do that doesn't seem to be on their time scale. Like, I think that they would benefit greatly from spending a good amount of time really thinking about individual encounters, as far as like the placement of monsters in the world and how you place them in such a way that those encounters are meaningful for the atmosphere, rather than just dotting them around the place randomly.
Yeah, there's a few they've done that for in live, but not as many as I'd like.
Well, yeah, I mainly think of places like Kingsmouth at the start, where you just You're constantly surrounded by zombies that just repop constantly.
Yeah.
But
Generally, it's the bosses and the named creatures that are in an atmospherically appropriate place.
yeah, I mean, and they do a good job of that sometimes. But yeah, there are
for example.
a few other bits of the story I think will probably do with a bit of firming up, like the part where you've got to wrangle all of those spirits of the pharaoh's architect's children or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes like really grindy really quickly because of the sheer amount of travel you have to do and kill everything in the way every time.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some improvements to be made there. But I think that you can get a better game out of it rather than just letting Secret World die on the vine, because as far as storyline goes, it's more effective than pretty much any other MMO on the market. Like I would put it ahead of SWTOR quite comfortably, and SWTOR is the one that most people think of as being the story MMO.
Yeah.
As far as single player content goes, I'm unfortunately rather immunized to the horror and atmosphere of the game because I've been a fan of the genre for so long. I used to be really easy to scare, but I've just kind of gotten used to it. So the game turned into systems very quickly for me. But the single player content and the puzzles you solve are actually really fun, even if they do require some brain warping sometimes.
Incidentally, another gripe I hope they sort out is investigation quests. If you're in an area and you're doing a puzzle, we don't want respawns in there.
Yeah.
Especially if we have to tab out of the game.
Most of those are okay on live. There are just a few that are really not quite right. Like they didn't think about the fact that there was an investigation quest there. But most of them tend to be in quiet areas.
Most of them, yeah. But every now and again, there's just one.
But I've chucked out my collection of backs of envelopes that have notes on them.
That's fine. Start again, and well, for all we know, they've probably rearranged some anyway.
Yeah, I hope they haven't taken them out, because they were the strongest thing in the game from a mechanical perspective.
Hands down, the strongest bit.
Yeah, I think that I would have heard if they'd actually pulled them out. I think I would have heard more outrage.
Yeah,
but like it's a really good thing both for single player and multiplayer. Like you get a lot of engagement both out of working them out yourself and with putting your head together with somebody else and trying to nut one out. Especially considering the very broad skill set that is needed to do some of them.
Yes.
Yeah, you're going to do some studying on some topics you haven't thought you'd be interested in once you start doing those.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there was only one. There was one in Transylvania that I sawed through with no effort because it was all chemistry and biology.
Yeah,
I had no problem with that, but everything else just gave me.
Yeah, like sciences, cartography, ancient languages, dead languages, you name it, and there's probably a investigation quest that calls on that skill.
Yeah, when you talk to people usually have stories about one or two that they did with no problem, but it's always a different set for every person.
Yeah,
And
there's that one near the
hopefully-
start, which with Morse code that I just could not pick up on the pattern of because I have absolutely no sense of rhythm.
I cheated on the Morse code one with the car headlights because
I honestly think that they're just kind of a little bit out from what they were trying to say there. With the message.
Once I've worked out that something is being done in Morse code, I go and look it up because just recording it is too much busy work. But
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing that I think will benefit investigation quests from this new format the most will be the fact that there will be no chat pane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Though the urge to cheat is still there, but if you cheat, that's on you.
Well, the
it's
problem
fine.
is that people would
Investigation
spam the solutions in the chat pane.
Yes, that's not being forced.
Oh yeah. But yeah, it's not being forced on them to do that. And it's actually, investigation quests work both ways. They're good for people that both want to do them and people that just want to use them as EXP dumps. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they really need to stay in the game. Because they're huge amounts of EXP. And if you look up all the answers, yeah, you'll get all that EXP in 5 minutes. But if you don't, they're really fun.
You miss a huge amount of game content if you do that.
But those people don't like having fun. They just like seeing numbers go up.
But the idea here is that it'll be an RPG now. It won't be about numbers going up. Not primarily.
Well, not primarily. So the release date for the game, and this sounds extremely optimistic, June 26th.
Yeah, I'm doubtful. Like, if they're going to do a good job of it, that seems like it's really too soon. But I don't know. Like they shifted their entire team onto working on it and abandoned pretty much all the other content. And they don't have to do assets work, so maybe it is doable.
That
I
said, they are
guess.
still doing a bit of asset work, namely in regards to player models, from what I can tell.
Yeah, well, I think that's mainly they're rejiggering the bones,
Yeah.
so that the animations aren't so wonky, and
Yeah.
you don't constantly run like you need to go to the bathroom, or that you fail to make it to the bathroom in time.
Yes. That run. That jiggly run.
And there's also the sometimes when you're holding particularly shotguns, you end up in
Yes.
this really weird posture, which doesn't make any
Yes.
sense.
Both of those two things remind me of the Yaki Sex portion of the Secret World video we have on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I'm actually looking forward to, I thought that I would be really, really mad about it, actually. The fact that they're scrapping the skill wheel and they're completely redoing all of the skill stuff. Like, I expected to be really mad about it. But then when I thought about it for a little while, this redesign basically means that I can pick something that I like because I think it's cool and play that.
Yep.
Because everything will have to be like WoW style balance now. It won't be like, well, the combat situations are so brutal that you actually can't do anything but a build that works really well, because by the time you get to Transylvania, if you don't have a really good build, everything will kick your butt. But in this scenario, with the skill tree gone, it'll basically mean that from the ground up they have to balance every skill set to be workable. So I can pick one or two that I actually really, really like for the theming reasons and then play those. Like,
Yep.
I really liked tons of the skills in the blood tree, but
Yep.
blood works really badly on its own and only works well with a couple of things.
Yeah. There's a few weapons like that. Hammers, I think, were one of them as well.
Hammers were really, really good early, and then they just kind of fell off in
They
Transylvania.
kind of fell off, yeah.
The cooldowns were just a bit too long, and you just couldn't. While they were good for emergency situations, you need stuff that's more consistent in Transylvania, and it just doesn't work. I had to completely throw that spec out and switch to swords.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people find that, like, you get that. I think there seems like there are a couple of big humps in the game difficulty. Like, there's one when you move from the second area in main to the third area in main. There's a big difficulty spike there, and
Yes.
the noob builds can survive up until that point. You know, ones where you just pick stuff at random, more or less,
Yep.
that you think is cool. They'll survive up to that point, and then they'll get shreked by everything in sight. And there's another spike after City of the Sun God, where you're coming into Transylvania, where now you don't merely need a workable spec, you need a really well-refined and efficient one, because everything will brutalize you otherwise.
Yeah.
And
So,
you don't want to get stuck in those kind of specs either that are really good in the situations just before this one, or before you get to the Transylvania one, because they don't work anymore.
So, overall, I have to say I'm actually looking forward to this. Like, I really enjoyed the Secret World, despite all its many flaws. But this looks like it's a good way forward.
Yeah, and the thing that makes me optimistic is that I'm actually willing to accept more flaws from an RPG than an MMORPG. Like, I'll still get angry about them, but because the design intent is different, because an MMO's design intent is to slow you down and get in your way, generally speaking.
Yes.
Whereas
Yes.
an RPG's design intent is to tell the story in a way that communicates what the writers want to communicate. Those priorities are very different.
Yes. So, if you head over to the official website, which is secretworldlegends.com, there's a couple of articles on there, a couple of letters from the developers, which go through in a bit more detail exactly what they're doing. Like, they've mentioned in here stuff like cash shop items. They're going to try and move those over. I'm not sure how successful they're going to be on that. I hope they succeed.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath.
Imagine the salt.
I'm sure that they very much will attempt to do so, but they'll probably get a limited number of the cosmetic ones will get through, and I think there'll probably be a bunch of stuff that doesn't really get through. I think mostly the people that are mad, they'll probably be like, because you can reasonably expect that sooner or later that will get done. It just depends on how smoothly development goes. I think mainly people are just mad that the people who have collected like a whole mountain of top tier talismans that they can't port over.
Yeah, and all the various costumes and things you unlock through gameplay.
It'll entirely depend on how good the guy building the database is and what system he has. Most people don't, when they're switching a game up this hard, it's going to come later. But it can be done, but don't hold your breath for it. And especially if that database guy's doing double duty.
they've got a small development team and they've got a really harsh deadline. So that's why I'm saying I wouldn't hold my breath.
Yeah, but
the
they do
database
say
guys
that
always
the investigation quests are coming back, so that's good.
I'm not really sure what their intention is with dungeons.
Yeah, they haven't really expanded on that very much.
Because the reality is that their dungeons were cool. Like, they were good.
Yeah.
And they were brutally difficult when you did them level appropriate. Like, they were some of the better dungeons that I've seen in MMOs.
They didn't really fit so much into the story, though. Well, the Polaris.
Some of them did, some of them didn't. It all depends on where they were positioned. But, But yeah, I don't know how. I don't think that all of the difficulty will be preserved because, like, even if they kept them the way they are, I think that you would lose a bit of difficulty because part of the difficulty of the instances that we did was that you basically had to go through there and you get wrecked and drag yourself bleeding and crying out of the instance, and then using the knowledge that you gained in there, have everybody rejigger their builds in order to survive the place. That was the way it intended to go.
We kind of man-moded them, though.
We basically just took the builds that we thought were the most durable that we could. But the thing that I like the most is that they have fights that are actually spectacular. Like, the thing is that I find with, like, World of Warcraft, I think is a really good example, is that very rarely in World of Warcraft is there anything bigger than Onyxia. And things as big as Onyxia are rare. You very rarely get a showstopper of a fight.
Yeah, but, like, there's plenty of big dungeon fights and there's plenty of big names, but none of the fights really feel epic. None of them have that sense of gravity to them.
But, you know, in the Secret World, you had those moments where, like, you're shivering in the darkness behind a stone pillar hoping that Cthulhu won't find you.
I remember when we first saw him.
I love that. 2
men in that dungeon, and we get to Cthulhu, and we're like, that's a big monster. That's a really big
Cthulhu
monster.
Over there.
We're going to be now.
Even the other simpler ones, like in the first Hell instance, I think it was the first Hell instance, the final boss is just a gigantic demon with a whole pile of rocket launchers on his back. And you spend the entire fight running hell for leather hoping you don't get hit by them. Like,
you stop, you die.
It's like when you fight a boss in World of Warcraft, you walk in there and all you do is you do your rotation and you dodge the abilities. By some bizarre alchemy, when I played Secret World, I came to the instances and I come up against the final boss in a dungeon and I'd feel completely outgunned by them. And it was really a sensation of trying to survive long enough to kill the boss, not oh well, we just have to pull off our regular damage rotation and step out of the pool of fire now and again. It was like this thing will kill me if it looks at me the wrong way, and it's got eyes everywhere.
Yes, and guns.
Most of the bosses are entirely execution based in Secret World. There's very little need to push the numbers. You just got to do it right a lot of the time. Like when we were undermanning stuff, that was a lot of what it was. Is we just had to do it right for a lot longer than other people. So you didn't need to crank up the damage that much.
That last Darkness boss, it wrecked us over and over again.
Yeah.
Like we had to take Ari edited out most of them because we were in there for so long. We took so many pulls of that guy before we worked out how to bring him down because he just ridiculously outguns us. And I really hope that they can preserve that, but my concern is that that's too much of an MMO gamer thing, and it's just not compatible with the new way of doing things. But you know, that's not strictly true because things like Dark Souls are so popular now. That maybe they'll be willing to put in that sort of like, this is an eldritch abomination, it wants to eat your face, do something about it.
Yeah, maybe scale things a bit in terms of numbers, but keep the emphasis on execution.
Yeah, I mean, we managed to prove by the experiments we did that you can make those bosses work with fewer numbers. So, I mean, if they take it down to make it so those bosses are meant to be killed with lower numbers, or solo even.
So they don't take a week to kill on your own.
Most of the same mechanics would be okay, honestly.
Well, I mean, Cthulhu took us like 3 hours and 5 billion wipes, and I was shaking by the end of it.
Yeah.
It's still really fun. I'm glad we did both of those, all 3 of those.
These are the things that happen when I walk away for a weekend.
What did you do Darkness War?
I did Darkness War with you, but the first time you went through and did Cthulhu, I missed that.
Yeah, that was really hard. That was really hard dungeon 2 man at our level because we were basically at your level.
What have you two been doing? So speaking of Eldritch Abominations, let's move on, shall we?
Yep.
EA. See what I did there? So they're not pleased with BioWare Montreal because of Mass Effect Andromeda being not very good.
Couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of hipsters.
So EA is doing what EA always does. At the first sign of weakness, they are devouring the corpse.
I mean, really, what did we expect?
Nothing at all. Like, it's just what EA does. Is they will use a studio for as long as they are profitable and effective, but as soon as they sow a crack in that armor, it's on. It's om nom 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 time.
Yep.
So this
So
like
what
the only the only one studio that actually survived being pulled apart I wouldn't say survived. They got a second chance, and that is Maxis. They had Spore, and then they had SimCity.
I think Spore deserves punishment.
Spore got punished, but they were still around. They were still Maxis after that, and they ended up with The Sims, which was really, really big. And then SimCity happened.
Dun dun dun.
Deserves punishment. It's SimCity, because wow, way to drop the ball there, guys. Anywho, so I got to play a bit of Mass Effect Andromeda while I was away.
Why?
Because my brother had purchased it and had it on his computer, so I could okay, I'm going to sit down and have a look at this. I'm going to play through the prologue. I was thoroughly bored by the end of the prologue and just left it at that. This is after, by the way, they fixed the ceramic eyeballs issue. So they had.
That is not even 1/10 of what's wrong with those faces.
No, it is not. But it's one of the big things and one of the more noticeable things. So it doesn't help the fact that the characters are kind of flat and boring and unlikable. The combat is the same as it has been in the last 3 games. The set they send you to is a planet that's being torn apart by this big violent storm. And there's thunder and lightning, and there's generic alien number 27 running around shooting at you because reasons. But it just didn't feel impressive. It just felt by the numbers and tacky.
I can't even Andromeda. I can't even poke at it a little bit. I'm not even going to ask people to play it around me because I can't get past the animations and the graphics of the game. There's too ugly.
They spent a whole bunch of effort trying to clean them up in a patch, but I don't know if it really worked.
They're better.
Not the screenshots I've seen.
They're not fantastic, though.
I mean, if your characters all look like they're just got up from having their face smashed into the table for a few hours, it's not going to help if you try to just clean that up. And you need, all your characters' bones are made of some weird substance that is not whatever ours are made of. It ain't going to work if you just try to clean that up. They needed some serious overhauling. Yeah,
so the plot for the game, I just really didn't get into either. Honestly, it just, again, felt flat. Like, you've got Ryder, apparently on this colony ship that was launched 600 years previous, sometime between Mass Effect 2 and 3. So they sidestepped the whole terrible ending thing. But then his dad shows up and he kind of steals the show for a bit until he dies, because of course he does.
Obviously.
So, yeah. It's just, Like, there's people out there who would enjoy it, and the long-time Mass Effect fanboys would probably be disappointed by it, honestly. But, I just found it flat. So that's my experience with Mass Effect Andromeda, and as a result, I guess, not directly because of my experience, but just the overwhelming meh that the community has had for it. EA started to pull apart BioWare.
Yeah. Couldn't happen
well, I mean,
people.
the fact is that there is some sort of punitive measure is basically just appropriate at this point, because they dropped the ball in a spectacular fashion. They really screwed the pooch. They had hold of the most sort of lucrative franchise that EA has in the RPG space and turned it into a big old pile of crap. Like you can't really do much worse than that. They ruined everything. They ruined all of the sort of like the dregs of sort of customer loyalty that they still had after
Mass Effect 3.
The debacle of Mass Effect 3. But they took whatever was left and they screwed it up and threw it out. Like they moved it from, shaky ground to irredeemable, and that really deserves punitive measures. Like that if you have the best material available and you still make a lemon, that studio is just not worth anything. What can you possibly put them on at that point?
Yeah. So this time you are actually siding with the corporate Shoggoth?
Yeah, pretty much, because they deserve it. They took a great IP and they ran it straight into the ground, and they've never bothered to present an excuse. They've never said why it was a pile of trash. And
they tried to pass the buck at one point.
They did try to pass the buck, but all that says to me is that they are 110% responsible for the game being garbage, and they can't take responsibility for their failure. They did not say anything like, well, we made this mistake and this mistake and this mistake and we'll learn from them in future. No, they didn't say any of that. They pretended like their game was actually good and we just didn't get it.
Hang on. I think it's appropriate to play this again this episode, by the way. It's not quite No Man's Sky, but it's still appropriate. Carry on. Ignore the annoying harmonicas.
It was just... They deserve to be punished in some sense. Like, it's weird to say that, but I think that it's true. They've just ruined a great IP, and EA can't get that back. They can't get that back. They will have to put this franchise as a whole on the back burner for probably a significant length of time in order to let this whole affair blow over, because people won't trust Andromeda anymore. And what's more, they'll have to put extra effort into marketing the next one to convince people that it's not a huge pile of garbage, and it'll be like 5 years before we see another one.
Yeah,
Will it though?
It might be more.
Good sense would say that would be the case, but I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to see it sooner than that.
Well, we might see an announcement sooner than that, but we're certainly not going to see a game sooner than that.
We've got E3 coming up in a few weeks, so I dread to see what we're going to see there.
No,
probably
you'd
DLC.
You'd have to be completely mad to try and market a sequel on the back of this reception. Completely bonkers. And the fact is that EA is not quite that dumb. You don't get to be a corporate Shoggoth by making terrible business decisions every 5 minutes. Maybe every half an hour you can get away with it. But you know, they find these people. They're dissolving the studio for a reason. It's because they recognise what an apocalypse this has been for them.
In the words of Reciteer, capitalism ho.
You have failed me for the last time.
This is how it works. If you're hired to do something, then flub it, you get fired. Let's pretend this is just a dude for a company. Dude messes up his job twice in a major way. You fire that guy and get somebody else. That's how it works.
Yeah.
I mean, these sales, there is no way, if you're in the bean counting department of EA, there is no way not to compare the sales this time with the sales last time. And the sales this time are probably abysmal, and that's why you already find Mass Effect Andromeda in the bargain bin, because people can't get rid of stock. The press surrounding it has been too bad. Those GIFs are all over the internet of the game being crap. That's what people know about it. If somebody only knows one fact about Mass Effect Andromeda, it will be that it is bad. That's
incidentally,
the biggest PR
the
failure
EA
you possibly have.
The same EB I saw Mass Effect Andromeda in the bargain bin for. They also had maybe half a dozen of those collector's edition rovers.
Oh dear. Why would you want those rovers anyway? Like, who wants a quad rotor that can't fly?
Nah.
That's what it is, isn't it?
All right, so I'm just trying to find some numbers here. No. Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect 2 sold the best at 4.07 units. Mass Effect 3 at 3.08. Unfortunately, this article does not have Andromeda, so let me find numbers for Andromeda.
Yeah, it may not be out yet. I don't know if the quarter reports that have been mandatory have quite hit yet, and I don't know if it's leaked out. So it may not be.
You might not even see the result this time because people have to buy it first to find out that it's bad. The thing is that everybody now knows Mass Effect is a bad game, and they can't ever undo that now. They just have to let the thing sit. They have to let that stench of failure fade.
And Mass Effect 3 didn't blow up until the very end of it, so people had time to buy it and get burned.
And there was some people that managed to convince themselves that the ending was profound. So in some flash of denial where it just can't be that bad. Like how I keep saying Chaos Head can't be that bad of an anime. You know, people have. And then you look at it again and you realize that no, it is actually that bad.
It is really bad.
Yeah, so people have these, but it's because it happened so late. The burn was so hard, and then if they put out this stinker after it, you can't come back from that. That series is effectively dead. They're gonna have to put it on ice and let it sit and not talk about it. They have to get it out of public consciousness first.
Yeah.
That's the only way they can ever use it again.
The reality is that you can't save that. You can't save that IP now without just letting it fade away. And the same applies to the studio, because if somebody puts that studio on some, if EA decides to use that studio, the Montreal studio again, and they put them on a project and they make their press release, what are the press outlets going to say? Oh, well, the last big title that they worked on was Mass Effect Andromeda, which everybody will remember as, oh, so they're the studio that ruined Mass Effect, huh? Like, yeah, that's not what you want on your press release. Oh, made by the studio that ruined the Mass Effect franchise you love so much. Like, that's not the way you do it.
So there's no concrete numbers as of yet, but for the launch window, Mass Effect Andromeda is behind both Mass Effect 2 and 3 for comparison.
Yeah, it would have to be after all the press. There's no way wouldn't be a true statement. So
yeah, I'd say the only beat out Mass Effect 1 is because of pre-sales.
What are they using for the release window?
That's not.
Are they just talking about the entire quarter in which it was released?
Quite probably, but because it's not in this article.
It's worth noting, like, if they're using a quarterly basis, they're like the release quarter as the basis for the release window, which is it's an entirely reasonable way of doing it. It's worth mentioning that the drop in price for Mass Effect Andromeda happened faster than it did for those other Mass Effect games.
It happened faster than just about every other game, equivalent game in the market.
Yeah, because they need to get rid of them because nobody wants it.
Nobody wants it.
Like, basically, Mass Effect is now a spoiled product, and EA has to deal with that. And the best way to deal with that is to pretend like you work for the communist government and remove it from all of the photos of the dear leader.
All right, so that's that. What should we talk about next? And then we've got time for one more before we wrap up.
Well, what's the most important one we've got left then?
Oh, I know. World War Weeb.
So this is a little story that I found online that I thought was very, very entertaining, because it tells you a certain amount about what gamers are like in a way. So basically, this is a story that takes place in EVE Online. And
because only EVE Online could do this.
EVE Online occupies a sort of a unique position, shall we say, in the gaming pantheon. I view it as the one MMO that truly realized the dream, that truly became like a fully fledged world which was functionally built on emergent gameplay and player governed content, not player created content, but player governed content.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have in that setting, that interstellar setting, governments of sorts. You have really meaningful player faction alliances, that type of thing. It works in a very organic way that is superior to any other similar offering. And so in this great scenario, you have players who are like real legitimate movers and shakers, that their opinion matters because they control so much wealth or so much power or even so much pull with the developers, because you can get quite a bit of pull with the developers in EVE if you climb high enough up the in-game totem pole. If you manage to make enough of a name for yourself as the CEO of a corporation in-game.
Yes.
So there are a number of these types of people, and they tend to be people who control large amounts of wealth and large amounts of ships by means of controlling a major corp. Now, what has happened here is that you have a major alliance called Waffles because reasons.
Internet.
Yeah, because the internet, and they set up for the longest time they used a chat system that didn't have pictures, and when they switched over to Discord, like everybody on Earth has done now,
yes,
they suddenly had the ability to post pictures and chat, and it turned out that there were an awful lot of anime fans in their ranks, and their main channels got so thoroughly spammed with anime pictures and memes that they were basically unable to use it. ever. And in the end, the chat got so flooded that the alliance leader Reza decided to just ban them. Now this was of course deeply disappointing to a lot of the anime fans in Waffles. But of course there are also lots of people who are deeply offended by the fact that the chat was constantly being plagued by weeb crap. And so we're perfectly happy with the ban. So let's just lay that aside for now, and then we go to a podcast.
This
and
is still, mind you, within that one corp so far.
Reza is invited along to be a guest on a major Eve podcast, and so is another guest called Jintan, who is a member of the group of players who consult for the developers of the game. So he's very important inside the game and outside, obviously, in its sense. And basically they had a feud on this podcast, and there was a great deal of acrimony built up between Reza and Jintan. But it turns out that Jintan was also a big fan of anime. So there was basically there was a hit effectively was put out on Jintan for the sort of the very he treated Reza apparently very poorly on this podcast, and basically Reza decided he was going to get his own back. So when he was making his State of the Union, so to speak, address to the Waffles Alliance, he put out a hit saying that if the people from his alliance could kill Jintan in-game 10 times and bring him the corpse 10 times, he would lift the Discord ban on anime. So this created a great schism within the ranks of Waffles, because there are people who hate anime and people who love anime. So he said, okay, so if you bring me 20 corpses, then the ban will become permanent. It will never be up for debate that it can be lifted again. And so you created two teams, Team 10 and Team 20 within Waffles. And these people are both, these factions are both two of the incredibly wealthy factions with a lot of material for war, and all of them are after this one guy's head.
Yeah.
And
so imagine this poor guy. He could be out just cruising around in space and suddenly have a massive battle fleet on his tail. I mean, this is sort of the thing that can happen in Eve, but this is going to be happening to this guy all the time now.
So for a while, until people start trying to defend him so he doesn't get up to 20.
And so, now you've hit the rest of it.
So basically, Reza has used this as a pretext to begin an invasion to take Jintan's territory, and this emerging conflict comes to be known as World War Weeb. And basically, there are people from all over Eve are flocking to this engagement to join one side or the other, to basically take sides on whether anime is cool or not.
Yeah.
And so this is gradually sort of ballooning into this massive conflict as each side tries to court as many supporters as possible, and each side is like actively propagandizing to try and support their faction and so on. It's like there's a massive war, and Waffles is a powerful alliance with even more powerful allies, and so far there have been 5 corpses of Jintan have been collected by the anti-anime faction and 0 by the Weeb faction. But I just find this to be delightful in the sense of this is sort of like in-game emergent player-driven gameplay at its absolute finest.
Oh,
but
yes.
It also shows that when left to their own devices, gamers start war over anime.
Yeah.
And
so
like,
it is a massive, huge emergent gameplay event, but it's also extremely silly.
Yeah, like I'm it just makes me think that, you know, in the future when we have interstellar travel, somebody is going to start a war over somebody else saying that their waifu is trash.
World War Weeb will become a reality.
You know it. You know what these people are like.
Yeah.
I just thought it was just a really interesting a really interesting story which illustrates what MMOs can be.
Yeah.
What like, potential they have when the hand of every player isn't being held so much all the time.
Yeah. It's stories like this that make you really want to go in and play Eve, but then Eve
Then you
itself
remember
is
it's
kind of
just
the barrier.
an asteroid all day, every day.
Yeah, it's like you look at all this really cool stuff happening, and it's happening at the top of a really high cliff, and you're at the bottom.
Yeah, that's
Just
basically
like,
you can't get into Eve now unless you are like. I think that the most important tool for getting into Eve now is to be an extremely not only do you have to be very clever, but you have to be an extremely sort of gregarious and extroverted personality who gets along with everybody very easily, because the only way you will survive is if you can make lots of friends very quickly in high places.
If you're a lone wolf out in there, you're easy pickings. You're going to get exploded and robbed.
Oh
Yep.
dear.
I got robbed plenty of times. I don't think I got exploded, or if I did, it wouldn't have been very many times, but I did get robbed quite a few times.
If you probably got exploded, but I doubt you got podded.
Actually, I do remember losing 1 or 2 ships, so probably I did get exploded.
Yeah, podding is a different matter entirely, though.
I've been robbed many times. It's just something that tends to happen a lot if you're jet canning out in the asteroid belts.
Yeah.
I don't know why anybody would bother to rob somebody who's jet canning Veldspar, but apparently they're people with nothing better to do.
They've got the big guns, you've got the resources, they do the math.
But nobody wants Veldspar. It's the most prolifically available element anywhere. Although there have been times in Eve history where Veldspar's gone through a massive boom in value, simply because the people with the major mining fleets have gotten too remote to come into the Veldspar fields easily.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
I thought it was a fun and interesting story from my point of view.
Yeah.
I missed the boat on Eve. I really wanted to play it though, because it sounds like a lot of fun. But
It does, doesn't it?
yeah, like aside from it being absolutely ridiculous, like the internet is, it would be a lot of fun. But Eve's boat has gone and done sailed, and I missed that boat while it already left when it was too late the first time. It's gone
You can
so
always
far
try
now.
and swim and catch up, but good luck with that.
Yeah, no, I bring people together. I don't go out and meet them.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
And then you drive them apart and make them wear t-shirts to that effect.
That's okay. I leave them with the real horror of having to play WoW when I'm done with them.
Why would you do this, Ari? Why?
It's all
Because
for future
revenge.
planning. Maximum despair.
All right. Shall we start wrapping up?
Alrighty.
All right. Email topic of the week is y'all aren't going to send me one anyway, so I'm going to stop doing that. So, let's see. Closing comments go.
I need to go play more PlayStation, I think. I've got a lot of games I've got to catch up on that thing.
I keep thinking about playing PlayStation and how I don't have the money for a PS4. I just, more and more I spend time thinking about the things that I could do if I could actually afford anything. So I just need to grind out this last bit of time until I've gotten my doctorate in hand, and then I can go and find a job. But
Yes.
I still don't know what sort of job I want to find, and honestly at this point I'm just prioritizing getting one, because there are lots of things in this world which you need money to do. And one of those things is having enough capital to actually get a job you want as opposed to the one you need.
Yeah, that's what you probably should focus on, is getting a job that doesn't want you make you want to kill yourself first, and then you find your ideal job.
Yeah, because the fact is that if I want to pick up shop and move to somewhere for a lucrative job, you do need capital to do that. You can't just do it because you want to. And that's something that I need to build up. So I'll probably take something, below my station, so to speak. Not that there's anything technically below my station. I'll probably do something a bit more mundane in order to build up some capital, so that I actually have more options. I won't do retail. Nobody from retail would employ me to begin with, because I have 3 degrees and everybody will just assume that I'll leave at the drop of a hat. So it'd be a waste of money to train me.
To be fair, that is
it is true. They have every reason not to employ me, but I don't want them to anyway. So I'll probably take some sort of technician job or something like that, and I'll accumulate.
Don't do that. As long as you don't have to do support. As long as you don't have to do support, it'll be fine.
No, support is effectively a customer services job. It just so happens that your customers work in the same office. What technician means in a scientific context is the person who does the work, as opposed to comes up with the ideas.
I see.
Yeah, like I told, we had that discussion the other day. You could come out here and work for one of the mines, but that means working for literal Satan.
Yeah,
So-
some of the most evil companies in the world have holdings in Australia, like companies that profit off African civil wars in order to make money and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
We'd rather be rid of them, but they're kind of too big to move.
And
Yeah.
Then after you get
There you
swamped
go.
by work, you'll be stuck with no time to do anything. Oh, it'll be a wonderful switch.
That's another one. I'm going to call this episode after corporate Shoggoths, because that seems to be what we always seem to come back to.
I found a Shoggoth in my electric shaver.
Ugh. Also gross, and you should clean that thing more often.
Yeah, the thing is that I shave so often that I sort of forget about it in a sense that, like, because I shave like twice a day, once with an electric razor and once with a manual razor, I assume that there's almost nothing building up in the electric razor. But if you assume that for long enough, it stops being true.
Well, this is turning disgusting.
So
Ari,
we're
your
gonna close it out
comment,
then.
please.
Hollow Knight's good. Go play that video game. It is not unless you haven't ever played like a Shantae or a Metroid or a Castlevania post Symphony of the Night. But if you have, go play it because it's really good.
If you
It's not a
haven't,
good
go play
first for the
Shantae.
genre though. Yeah, if you haven't, go play Shantae if you haven't played one yet. But otherwise,
It doesn't
go play
matter
all
which
of them.
one. Just pick one. They're all good.
Any of them, any of them are good. They'll all do. Although the newest two are the best. So
Yes.
okay, all right. I think we're done, folks. We will see you next week, the same Saturday at 10:30 Eastern, whatever that time is, Fern time. All right. We'll see you
Lunchtime.
next week. Sayonara. Bye bye.